What's up? I think everybody can hear me. This is Ricky of the Ripple Effect podcast. This is a Patreon podcast. This is what I do once a month with my Patreon supporters. We do a podcast together, and then I share it with the world. So you get to be on the show, and I get to hang out and connect with some of the listeners and supporters of the show. So it's super awesome. So basically, this is the intro. I'm going to try to keep it short because there's already some people waiting to get on the show. I'm live streaming today, which is the first time I've done this. This episode, these type of episodes live. So let's see if I regret it based on how bad I mess up and how stupid I sound at times. But either way, it should be fun. So let's let some of these people in. It's a Patreon podcast. All the links will be in the show description if you do want to support the show on Patreon. Like I said, once a month, you'll be able to participate in one of these shows. And of course, all the other links to the Ripple Effect podcast on Odyssey. It's now on Rumble, Minds, a bunch of different spots. That's also in the show description, the merch store, all that stuff. So if you want to connect with me anywhere, that's the place to check out the show description. And it doesn't matter if you're listening to the show on iTunes or Spotify, wherever you're listening to or you're watching the videos, in the show description they all have the same information. So I should tone down this music because I think it's making me stutter and I'm not focused on what I'm saying. But here we go. I'm going to start letting some people in. I'm going to stop this screen sharing thing and let's get this party started. So we got a couple participants already, and I'm going to start letting them. And here we go. And here we go. We got Sean with us again. Andrew, Ronnie. He seems to be a regular. And here's Sean. What's up, dude?
How's it hanging?
There, I had to turn off my music that I had piped in there from earlier.
You guys, you hear me well?
Yeah.
Oops, I can't hear you. Let me see.
Ronnie, you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. So Sean can't hear me.
Did you watch the ice hockey championship?
Oh, you were watching it?
Yep. We beat your ass.
Who are you talking about? What? Who played? Who?
Finland and USA.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the NHL playoffs are going on right now too. The Bruins. I'm from Massachusetts, as you know, so the Bruins won.
Yeah, I'm a Washington fan there, so that's no good.
So the USA Finland game was last night?
No, just an hour ago. The groups.
Today. Oh,
yeah.
Good.
2-1 for us, the good guys.
That's your sport, right? Over there in
yeah, it's our religion.
It's your religion, yeah.
Yeah, like you say about football.
Yeah. Well, for Americans, when he says football, he means actual football, the original football. Not the American football, which
that's just a commercial sport.
It kind of.
I watched one game and they played for 2 minutes commercials, and I was like, what is this shit?
Yeah, when you watch soccer and you get used to not having that many commercials, it's amazing how like other sports just seem like the majority of the time you're just watching commercials. It's because it's 45 minutes in soccer of straight sports, and you're just into the game and you're focused into the game. You don't have any of these distractions. And the nice thing is they only have commercials, before and after the game and obviously halftime, but you can kind of ignore those. Like once halftime comes around, it's like, okay, let me go to the restroom. Let me go get something to drink. It's like you barely pay any attention to it. But and then you watch, like I've kind of gone out of basketball a little bit, even though that was really like the sport that I used to watch the most. And I've watched tons of soccer now because now it's super easy to watch it in the States. There's just so many different leagues that are televised, and I watch a little bit of everything. And then my son watches it with me, and a lot of the games are on during the day, so it's easier to watch. Like with basketball, Celtics games or whatever start at 7, 8 o'clock. Next thing you know, it's like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock, and so it's like he'd be tired. He wouldn't be that into watching the game, where soccer's on a lot. Most of the time it's like right when I get home from work, we can put it on, we can watch the Champions League, we can watch the English premiere on weekends on Saturday and Sunday mornings. So it's a better time. It's easier for us to kind of enjoy that together. And so I haven't watched a whole lot of other sports. And then now with the end of the basketball league coming around and the playoffs starting today, I started watching a little bit more basketball, and I'm just like, what the fuck is up with these commercials? And then the worst part is like you see a lot of the vaccine commercials and all that stuff, which is just drives me nuts. Every time I see it, I just want to like scream at the TV because I'm like, stop brainwashing people and getting the vaccine. It's like, and all they do is they put this guilt trip on you where they talk about how if you get the vaccine, things will be normal again. Participate in this whole movement of getting things back to normal. Don't you want to be outside? Don't you want, like Biden said, get vaxxed so you don't have to wear a mask, all this nonsense. And it's just like, why isn't anybody saying like, if I have antibodies, I don't have to wear a mask? Why isn't anybody saying if I have antibodies, I don't even have to get vaccinated? Like there's just no conversation about that. It's just so obvious that what the agenda is that I'm having these internal dilemmas where there's times where I'm talking to people and I say, you know what, I've given up trying to change people's minds. Like if you don't see it now, you're just like there's no getting through to you. And then the moment comes where I can change somebody's mind, and I attempt to do it every time, so it's like I keep saying like these people are frustrating, how do you not see it, by now? But then in the other hand, when I get that opportunity, I don't stray away from being like, hey, you do know like the vaccine actually doesn't stop the spread of the virus. It's not going to stop you from getting it. It's not going to stop you from spreading it. It's like the flu vaccine. The flu vaccine's never really said that it was designed to stop you from getting it. It's kind of like primer. It's a primer. It's like getting you ready. If you do get it, you have a less of a reaction. But so yeah, it drives me nuts. How is Finland? Have you guys, because weirdly enough, Massachusetts, after that CDC new guidelines came out where if you get vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask and all this stuff, we opened up quite a bit, and like almost overnight, like everybody just is like not wearing masks and seem to be moving on with their lives a little bit. Is Finland stepping in the right direction, or are they like Canada where they're actually stepping backwards?
We're trying to open up. We have different regions. So my region, we have the bars are open 80% or something. Just yesterday I went outside, went out drinking. No mask, nothing, just partying like regular. So it depends where you are. For me, I never had to wear a mask anywhere, so it's all good.
They didn't enforce it anywhere where you live in Finland. They didn't. It wasn't.
No, it's a recommendation. In work, I have like a face shield thing. They said if I don't put something on, they will uh, like kick me out. So I had to do that. But in the shops or and like that, it's a recommendation. Most people have it. Where if you see 10 people, maybe 2 doesn't have it and the rest has.
Huh. Yeah, that's a United States is very similar where it was all a matter where you lived. I mean, when I went to Florida in February and I came back, I mean, it was like night and day. It's like you're living in different countries. Like Florida, nobody gives a F about anything, and everybody's living their lives like it looked like it was either post 2020 or 2020 never happened. People were hugging and kissing each other, and nobody was freaking out if you ran into somebody. And then you come back to Massachusetts, and it's like, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure it is, because down there they're living like it's over and nothing is going on. And that's kind of the biggest uh, I think unasked question is like, why isn't somebody looking into these states that have opened up prematurely, some would say, and yet nothing happened? And if that's the case, then aren't we all ready to just move on? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, the politics people here have bought into the agenda 2030, so they're implementing some stuff like we have to have electric cars, like fading them in to 2050. Then every car should be electric. So good for Elon Musk, I guess.
You know what's funny? So Charlie Baker, actually I don't know where I ran into this article, but apparently he signed a bill where in Massachusetts by I think it's 2030 that basically every car has to be electric. You can't sell any more gas powered cars in Massachusetts. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like if this was signed, I lived in Massachusetts. I love cars. I go to car shows. Not anybody I know knows about this. Like nobody knows about this. I'm like, was it secretive? I'm like, because 2030 is like right around the corner, and to think that like we're just going to eliminate typical cars like we're used to for only electric cars that soon seemed kind of surreal, you know. And then again, like you said, like who's it benefiting, you know, because obviously the car makers and everybody else must know about this and must keep track with these rules and regulations that end up having some effect on their businesses. So it's but it's amazing that so many of these things are happening where they're really trying to take that turn almost, I think, too quickly, because
Yeah, but did they put like we have a fade in period? So 30% to 2030, and after that, more and more and more, and 2050, everyone should drive electric cars. So
Well,
it's fading in slowly over time.
well, the government has contracts now with Elon Musk to change everything over to electric cars in the government. And I don't know if it's in just California only or if it's across the nation here. But I mean, that's what, you know, Nancy Pelosi knew that was coming quite a bit before, and she has a bunch of stock in Tesla. So I mean, you know, it's more of that insider trading stuff that, you know, they're allowed to do, and we're not.
Yeah, Corbett just did a really good video on I think it's called like the market is rigged or something like that. I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but I mean, basically, obviously the title tells you what it's about. I mean, I'm sure he's done some deep dives into how it's rigged, and I think he probably goes into the whole Robin Hood, GameStop story. But it is fascinating. It's fascinating that people don't realize like the system's designed to benefit a few, and many of us like this whole idea of like go out, you can get rich, even though a lot of people that I know are making some money with cryptocurrency, which seems that, you know, the recent kind of plummeting of the all the cryptocurrencies seems like it might be some type of attack or something, you know, trying to, because the popularity keeps increasing. I'm wondering if they're just trying to get people to lose faith in it. And you know, a lot of people think like, oh, it's, what does it mean? Like it's cryptocurrency. How does it have value? And they don't realize like you could make that argument just about with anything that exists in the world. You know, like what backs the American dollar? What backs you know, anything? You know, it's like what gives it value? I mean, a little bit's just faith, and people just people wanting it. Does it being desirable gives it value, just like a classic car, right? If for some reason it came in a color that at the time wasn't popular, but later, you know, when the car is 20 years old or 30 years old or 50 years old, people are like, dude, that purple was pretty badass and we took that for granted. I want it. And all of a sudden people are like, yeah, that purple is pretty cool. And then everybody wants it. All of a sudden you just gave value to something, more value to something. I mean, you see it in those classic car auctions where like a car that you think is badass like sells pretty cheap, and then a car that you're like, what the, like that thing sold for a couple million, like it blows your mind. But it is because of that one little feature that's desirable, that one option that came specifically just for that year. So it's yeah, I mean, well, what gives things value? I guess it's so subjective.
My crypto has no value at the moment. That's for sure. It
Well,
went down hard this week.
yeah, well, crypto has been going down hard since I did the Union of Unwanted on Bitcoin. I dibble dabbled a little bit on Coinbase and bought some Bitcoin, but it's so I've been keeping track of it a little bit. But some people are saying that they think it's it's kind of an attack, like that people colluded, you know, to buy or sell a bunch of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to basically lower its value. But the thing is, I don't know a whole lot about trading or the markets or crypto, But I know one thing I've heard from a lot of people who do know a lot is that when like Bitcoin's not going away. You know what I mean? Like Bitcoin's not go. Oh, I almost wore my Celtics jersey. Damn it. Bitcoin's not going away. And so because it's not going away, if you just wait long enough, the value is going to end up going up. It's just so you basically, now's the time that you buy. Like when shit hits the fan like this and things are going down, whatever money you're willing to invest in it, now you buy it, and you buy it super cheap, and then when it works its way up, because guess what? Like everybody said, it's almost like podcasting where everybody's like, oh, it's too late to start a podcast. Like I'm late to the party. Everybody says the same thing about cryptocurrency. I said the same thing. Like when we did that Bitcoin episode, I'm like, oh, I haven't bought any because in the last year or so, I'm like, oh, I'm late. I'm like, well, what's the point of putting any money in it? And plus, I'm just not really big into investing, but I like the idea of it. And I want to kind of support the idea of us having control of our own currency and whatnot. So I invested, and that's the other thing you kept hearing from people. It's like, well, oh, we all say it's too late. We all say it's too late, but if it's not going anywhere, if it goes down, eventually it's going to go up. It's not like Bitcoin's going to disappear. That's kind of what makes Bitcoin unique compared to some of these other currencies, is that it's been created in a manner that's like, it's never going to go away, and there's always going to be people who are really passionate about it, and it's technology and all that stuff. So I kind of feel like it's kind of safe but like they say, like, don't ever invest any money you can't live without, right? Like don't make any life-changing decisions by, putting your house on the line, hoping that Bitcoin's going to increase in value overnight. But Andrew, Cody, what's up, boys? I think this is the first time I've seen you guys on one of these.
What's up, Ricky?
Go
ahead, Cody.
Yeah, I was on one last week with Propaganda Report, and that's actually the first time I've probably put myself in front of a group of people since the 8th grade, and I passed out giving a book report. So it's not really my comfort zone, but so this is the second one now. But
oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, they also do like those drinking parties, the Propaganda Report, right? Don't they drink or something like that? They used to. I think Monica told me about that.
Yeah, they have a DDT party on Friday nights. I'm not sure what it's about. I have a hard time fitting in some of this stuff because I'm a type of person that I'm active. I try to provide for myself as much as possible. I mean, I make my own soap, sauerkraut. I make my own sausage. I'm really big into gardening. Anything that can be fixed, I try to do that myself. But kind of a libertarian type of person, but unfortunately, then you don't have a whole lot of extra time to kind of do stuff like this. And the reason I'm into podcasts is because that's something I can stick in my ear and learn while I'm doing just about everything else that I do. So, but yeah. The cryptocurrency recently, I've been listening to a lot of what you guys were talking about with this stuff, and I got a wallet and I was going to get into it, but I guess I still had this fear, worried that a lot of these, possibly could be another cage they get chased into. And what's going to happen when it seems like every opportunity that the average person has, as soon as an opportunity opens up that you can be more self-sufficient and we can do things in smaller groups, somehow it gets infiltrated and ends up not being what we thought it was. I know Bitcoin is different than the other ones, but I wasn't really looking into Bitcoin. I was looking into the other ones, but and some of them seem to be that you can see that they're very easily manipulated. And then once you see something hit public, I mean the broad public, that it's on TV, then that's the time where I guess I really get iffy on jumping into something like that. So I still think that you were talking about value, and I personally believe that most value in everything is invention of the human mind. When you get outside of food, water, and shelter, a lot of it is invented by the human. The tulip bulb bubble kind of showed us that things can go from the most important thing on earth to being worthless. So the things I put in value are actually providing for myself. And the other thing that a lot of people don't think about the value of is community. Having groups and I guess the reason I got attached to the podcasting is that was my group, because if I go out in the public and I talk about certain things that I've learned, digging up truths about things, understanding health, and then you try to explain to people about what you've learned, you start getting nicknames like Buzzkill Cody, because a lot of people don't want it, or they think you're crazy. In podcasting, those groups are the only place where I kind of find a really good connection and friendship with the people. So I thought, yeah, I'm not comfortable kind of getting in groups exactly like this, but I thought, well, if I consider these people my friends and they're giving me valuable information, I should jump in here and there and try to get involved with this stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, I almost feel like podcasting is almost like going to a concert and everybody's there to see the same band. Like without talking to anybody verbally, you kind of feel like you're all friends because it's like, oh, we all enjoy this together. We kind of have a connection. And podcasting is kind of the same way. You meet somebody who's in a podcast and it's like, okay, I think we can be friends. I think we probably have a lot in common. And I love that whole, because as some of you guys probably know, I was born in northern Portugal on a farm, so my parents still live very much that lifestyle of doing everything themselves, like you said, Cody. Like they make all their own chorizo, all their own the sausage. They make they kill they raise them and they kill the animals in the backyard. They have gardens. And there's something very, I don't know, just it's peaceful. It's a connection with nature that I think many of us kind of take for granted, just being outside and just being it's being in the sun and feeling the breeze, all these things that we kind of feel we take for granted. Recently in Massachusetts, like I think I was saying before, they started kind of loosening up on things. Like last week they finally let kids play sports outside without masks, and I think next week they're going to let businesses finally not mandate masks. So I'm like, in a way, I'm excited. Like I'm excited, but in another manner, I'm like pissed, because I'm like, why the fuck do we have to be excited about this? Like, these aren't things that we should be happy that Master now said we can walk around and breathe fresh air. Like, and then all the pure pressure, like my son, he has a medical exemption form for masks, but so many kids would ask him. And then where he plays soccer, there's a lot of different coaches that help out and stuff. So he would always have like assistant coach would be like, why aren't you wearing a mask? And because they wouldn't know. And I would have to talk to the head coach. I'm like, listen, can you tell the coaching staff, tell everybody that he has a medical exemption? Because I'm like, he starts crying, he feels bad, he thinks he's doing something wrong. And I'm trying to tell him and then I'm arguing with him because I'm like, don't, because he wants to wear one. He's like, can I just wear one so they leave me alone? And and I'm like, okay, now soccer, this thing that's supposed to be a fun event, now has become a stressful thing. It's become a thing where you have anxiety before you go because you're freaking out about, is somebody going to say something? Can I just play without somebody bothering me? And so it's like you kind of pressure people into wearing one. So there's still one of his coaches who are still wearing a mask. He had a game this morning. One of them is still wearing a mask. There was a game after his game, a girl game that I think they were like 13, around that age. And there's a couple girls on the field that were still wearing masks. And I was with a friend of mine who came to watch my son play. And I'm like, what the fuck are they doing still wearing masks? I'm like, now that they don't have to. And then we were talking, we're like, it's not them, it's their parents. I'm like, it's their parents that are brainwashed them. I'm like, there's no way those kids enjoy wearing those things, especially today. It was humid, it's hot in the East Coast, and you're sweating. Soccer, obviously, you're going to sweat quite a bit. So it's like it's not enjoyable. The only reason you're wearing it is because your parents have brainwashed you into believing that you're protecting somebody, you're doing something. And but it's wild. I mean, you're outside in the sun. I mean, the sun kills viruses, it kills germs. I mean, that's why you usually get sick more in the winter, because the coldness will keep germs alive longer. And it doesn't make any sense. But it's but I guess my point, I'm going on a long rant and I'm kind of forgetting my point. My point was that, I was there and being outside and just seeing kids' faces, and I was telling my wife this when we got home from the game. I'm like, just seeing everybody and hearing kids talking and enjoying life and kind of looking around and seeing everybody just kind of gathering, and things felt normal for a little bit. And it was something that before 2020, you wouldn't, it'd be harder to embrace the moment. Like it would just be like, okay, it's just a soccer game. It's a kid's soccer game. But now it's like almost every moment I'm like, I'm attempting to be more in that moment and enjoy it and not take it for granted, because I'm looking around and I'm like, this was stripped away from us. Just like being around other people, being social, being able to just be outside with other people with no awkwardness or whatever. And it's like, I don't want to take this for granted, and I don't want to just pretend like, oh, things are back to normal. Let me just like go back to normal by taking it all for granted. And so it has kind of created a appreciation a little bit to some of those simpler things that I think we take for granted. But it's all
a lot of happiness, and a lot of happiness and gratitude all comes from perception, right? You know, they've taken 10 things away from us, and then they gave us back 5. And if the 5 feels good because we had nothing, but it's still all about perception. If you eat steaks every day, you know, if you give somebody a steak, it's not a big deal. But if you haven't eaten in 3 weeks, a Ritz cracker is going to be off the chart good. You know, so yeah, they're trying to fracture connectiveness and nature, which is what connectiveness is, not to nature, but other people. We're part of it. So
no,
yeah.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I fast all day and I love eating. And so like I always tell my wife, I'm like, the way I eat is it really makes eating enjoyable, because I don't eat all day, regardless if I go to a gym or go to work or whatever. And so then every time I eat, like everything tastes amazing, because
that first meal I eat is the healthiest one, because I know that I don't have to put a lot of things that you normally would think that would be in food, maybe like your sugars, your grains and stuff like that. Because if you haven't eaten since, 3 o'clock the previous day and it's like 1 o'clock, it's like, man, whatever you put in front of me is probably going to taste good. So I try to make that probably the more healthiest meal. But yeah, your first meal is just unbelievable.
Yeah. And that's the thing about dieting too, right? Like if you, once a week we'll have pizza night. Usually it's like once a week or once every other week on a Sunday night. I play soccer Sunday night, and then I'll come home and we'll have pizza with the family, and it tastes amazing, and I love it. And then I'm like, I always try to tell people, I'm like, yeah, but if I eat pizza every day, eventually it'd just be pizza. If I eat pasta every day, it'd just be pasta. I'm not a big pasta guy, but some people love pasta. It's like, well, you'll appreciate that pasta meal if you don't eat it for a while, and then when you eat really clean, by the time you do eat like shit and you have a cheat day or reward day, whatever you want to call it, you're gonna be like, oh crap, this is I remember this feeling, like this just sluggish feeling I get after I eat, and I don't like it, so let me go back to my diet tomorrow. So it's kind of beneficial in that regard too. But the community thing is so important. So much of the psychological long-term trauma and psychological issues that have been created by 2020 has been basically that, like us separating communities, people who needed to go to AA, people who needed church, the community you get from church, people who needed the community of like going, like I play pickup basketball quite a few times during the week, and it was, for the most part, it was always the same guys. So it was nice to always see the same guys. Hey, how are you? How's the family? And it becomes like a community. Like I have my Thursday basketball night guys, that little community. I have my Wednesday night basketball. Those guys become a community. So you took that away from everybody, and you didn't realize how much you needed that. I think some of us understood. We understood how it's so deep rooted in our DNA to be social creatures, and we need it for just mental stability. But I think a lot of people kind of took it for granted. They're just like, oh, just lock down for a little bit, it's like, this is so unnatural. It's
even the TV we used to have when I was younger, it was like, even that was part of community, because when you went to work the next day, you all talked about the same program. You were all watching at the same time. If you talked about the news, everybody that's talking about it was communally watching that news network at the same time. If you watched Dallas, the Incredible Hulk, BJ and the Bear, all that stuff was all kind of at the same time. And it actually was a part of community. Now everything's scrambled, recorded. So you sit down at the table and with 8 people, and nobody has the same story or familiarity with what you did the night before. So
You have the big shows like Game of Thrones and stuff like that most of the people watch. But I get your point. I also miss ice hockey. I played 2 times a week, but
It's good. It's
now
good.
it's closed.
So, well, what does your sign say, Andrew? It says,
It says COVID vaccine makers are exempt from liability. Vaccineeducation.org.
is that one of your websites or?
No, it's a friend of mine. I'm actually from Massachusetts, Ricky. We connected on Twitter like a year ago. I started a Twitter for watching geoengineering, like, the trailing in the sky, because it's just been so ridiculous the past couple of years. And I was like sharing some videos and stuff, and I started a podcast and a YouTube channel. I got like almost 500 subscribers. I was like, I don't like this. I don't like talking to a fucking screen. I wanted to meet you in person. I still do, but this is crazy. This isn't normal for me either. But like, I do like to talk. You definitely like to talk, Ricky. It's fucking crazy, dude. I knew you would appreciate the Celtics jersey because you're a Boston guy, and I seen you in a Celtics jersey. I was like, I got to put this on. I like to wear silly hats, dude. I like to have fun. This year has been so crazy, bro. Just fucking mind-blowing how crazy this year has been. Children, high school children are playing football with fucking masks on. Like, you were talking about that. Your little kids in sports having to beg to breathe fucking oxygen. Give me a fucking break.
Have you guys watched that 10-year-old, that viral video of the 10-year-old talking?
Yeah, being like, "Oh, you're all hypocrites." Yeah, that one.
Oh yeah, Did he? I think he did say
At the end, he's like, I asked my mom, "Is there a word for that? When they tell you to do something and then they do it themselves?" She's like, "Yeah, hypocrite." And I was just like, this fucking kid's amazing. I mean, this is a mad world, dude. If we don't stand up for these kids, they can get vaccinated without the knowledge or consent of their own parents. If their parents send them to school, they can fucking consider that implied consent. Dude, what the fuck? Are we going to tolerate this shit? Like, I started a podcast. I'm angry, man. I'm angry. I got over a heroin addiction. I wanted to kill myself a couple years ago. I started talking about that on my podcast. Just fucking doing 60, 70, 80 pills a night, bro. Fucking out of my mind. And here I am, like, trying to stand up for what's right and, like, stand up for ourselves, all of us, because these fucking kids need us. I'm going to a birthday party today. I got to go pick up a Mickey Mouse cake from, it's like, talk about the programming, like, the Mickey Mouse shit. Have you guys ever seen, like, with the, like, when you reflect it on water, Mickey, like, it says wicked?
No.
Like, if you've never seen that, look that up. Literally upside down in a mirror, Mickey spells wicked. And there's ties with Disney to MK Ultra, and Disney was a pedophile, Satanist pedophile, I love that joke Sam Tripoli tells. A Satanist, a pedophile, Scientologist, and a Nazi walk into a bar. What do? They formed NASA. Like, and I was supposed to fucking believe they landed on the fucking moon, dude. Look at this shit. July 21st, 1969. The Eagle has landed. We walked on the moon. Like, give me a fucking break, dude. We're supposed to believe these people.
If you guys haven't seen my recent podcast with Massimo, he was on years ago in like episode like 124, but he was on a Union of Unwanted show. I had him come on when we did the false flag episode, and then I just had him on my show because I'm like, hey, let's catch up and talk, just because it's been such a long time. But he has a great documentary called American Moon about the moon landing, and it's really good. And I didn't know, but Monica Perez, when I had him on the Union of Unwanted, because usually I don't let people know who the guests are and who's participating, because I don't ever I'm always concerned about, like, okay, I don't want people just who don't really care about participating in the show only participating because we're having this big guest on or that person on. So I'm like, this way everybody who joins actually wants to join regardless, if we have a big guest or not. And so she didn't know, and I didn't know that she was a huge fan of his. She's had like watch parties for his documentaries, but he also did one of the I think one of the most important documentaries on 9/11 called 9/11 A New Pearl Harbor, and I believe it's like 4 or 5 hours. It's been a long time since I watched it, and it was phenomenal. But the moon landing thing, yeah, I mean, that's the thing about like the government lying to you, right? It's like the joke is like the reason why people believe the government's lying to us is because they've lied to us. they've been caught lying to us over and over again. Like, why is that so hard to believe? But the thing is, I'm the same way, Andrew. I get so worked up talking, and I'm sure if you've listened to some of my shows, you'll hear it. I'll legitimately get upset, and it's not just because of like my own personal experience. It's because of what I see happening to kids, and like even though I was really excited about the kids all playing soccer without masks and playing sports outside without masks like they should be, I in a way I was still upset that one, it took this long, because it's ridiculous that it took this long, and two, I was like, what if these kids, like some of these kids have some health issues down the line because of the breathing in carbon dioxide, especially at the rate that kids outside running are doing, because you're taking deep breaths, you're breathing in the carbon dioxide over and over again. I'm like, what if they have health issues because of it? And who's going to be responsible for that? Your sign about liability, I mean, these employers that are telling their employees to get vaccinated if they want their job, I've been hearing that a lot of people believe that basically redirects the liability onto the employer. If you ask your employee to or your employer to, if your employer, I'm messing up, it's still early, I need another cup of coffee. If you ask your employees to get vaccinated to keep their job or to have a job, then if you get hurt, then they're responsible. And I'm curious if they know that and they're willingly doing it anyways, or I'm just curious if like they're not concerned about it because it's so hard to pinpoint some health issue and completely contribute 100% of any health issue you might have to the vaccine. Because like, as we know, it's in so many cases, it could be something down the line and you might not even connect it to the vaccine. You might not think it's related. And I mean, look at the magnet thing, right? Del Bigtree just did he wasn't on, but Jeffrey was filling in for him on the last High Wire episode, and they went down on the streets somewhere in California near the beach, and they're asking people like, hey, have you been vaccinated? Can we try to put this magnet on you to see if it sticks? And it didn't stick on everybody. So it's not, but it doesn't mean it's untrue. Like half the people it did stick, and the people that it did stick on, they were freaking out because they just threw a magnet only on the spot that they got vaccinated is the spot where it would stick. And you just see them like looking at it like, dude, this is so weird. Like this is, it's so who knows what that's the thing. Like so many people are just blindly getting the vaccine, not asking, like they don't even care which vaccine.
Zero research.
Yeah.
Zero.
I tried that on my coworker.
I mean, literally zero. I've talked to people. I go out and do like street activism. I take my camera. Like I was in Walmart the other night, and they were having a vaccine clinic in the back the back corner of Walmart by the potting soil in the Roundup. Right next to the Roundup, they got they're still selling Roundup on the shelves in Walmart. Right next to the Roundup, they got a little COVID vaccination center. No cost to you. Signs everywhere on the front of Walmart. Vaccinations at no cost to you. We got billboards in Charlotte all over the place. Hashtag, this is my shot to hug my daughter. Hashtag, this is my shot to educate my students. They got a massive one now. It's like a digital sign. It's got a doctor in a mask on and holding the vaccine. It's safe, it's free, it's effective. Get vaccinated. I mean, it is omnipresent. It is everywhere. National, NPR, National Propaganda Radio has vaccination hours. Like it's elite. It's not FDA approved, so the companies can't advertise, but everybody else can talk about it. McDonald's can put vaccines on their French fry boxes, and Bill de Blasio can go on fucking TV and be like, French fries, hamburger, tastes like vaccination. How the fuck do we allow this, dude? Like Lady Gaga and Usher and fucking Selena Gomez are like, just get vaccinated. Like and the craziest thing is people are influenced by them. These people are called influencers for a reason.
Well, that's yeah, go ahead, Sean.
No, I just turned down a job. I was in an interview, and like 3/4 of the way through the interview, they said, well, and we also need to let you know that the policy of this company is to, if you're going to be hired here, that you're going to need to be fully vaccinated and show proof. And I was like, no, thanks. I'm good. I'm not, no, I'm not taking an experimental vaccine. Sorry.
Columbia University just sent out an email. I have a good friend who works there. He goes, my friend sent me a message. He goes, I got the long anticipated email. And I said, no way. And he's like, it's mandatory at Columbia University. The same place where technocracy was birthed. Now we're living in it, swimming in it. You know, it's so ridiculous, dude.
And that's the thing, like, they're not even, they're saying if you get vaxxed, you don't have to wear a mask. They're telling you, like, get vaxxed so then we can get back to normal. And nobody's like dissecting what they're saying and looking at it as like, okay, well, if I have antibodies, why do I need to get vaccinated? If I have antibodies, do I have to wear a mask? Like, all these simple questions that just basically cut through the bullshit and make it obvious that, like, okay, this isn't about antibodies. This isn't about my ability to fight a disease. This is about just vaccinating the world, like getting everybody vaccinated. And I wonder if they're opening things up now because they know that there's a percentage, because in Massachusetts, I think that we have like the highest vaccinated percentage of the population.
Of course we do. Of course we do. There were people hiking in the woods last year in the middle of the woods on a mountain wearing masks, walking away from me. I mean, that's Massachusetts, man.
We're pretty bad.
But you know what? It's everywhere. It's in every country. Mind control works. It really, really works. And it's really powerful and it's subtle and it's subliminal and it's tricky. Just look at the Disney movies, man, with the MK Ultra stuff. It's like they literally are one and the same. You know, all these kill a parent in the beginning of a Disney movie, get them in trauma, right? We get them in trauma. We create split personalities, dissociative disorders. We do. I don't want to play the victim here too much because I've overcome a lot in my life. Thanks to plant medicine, by the way. Psilocybin, completely illegal. You know, that was the only thing that worked. I had therapists in the allopathic system, right? They were asking me to get them drugs. And I was actually the therapist in these sessions. I was like, I got on Suboxone, you know, and then I got addicted to Suboxone. The Suboxone is the drug used to get off of heroin, you know, and then you go through these clinics and these treatments. These people don't know what they're doing and they're trying to help, you know, some of them go in well-intended, of course, you know, and they think they're actually doing the right thing. But usually it ends like, it's like a 5-6 minute session with a psychiatrist and you go in and you're like, I can't focus. They're like, here's some Adderall. You're like, I'm a little depressed. I'm a little sad. Here's some Ativan. Here's some, you know, Valium. Here's some Xanax. And literally, man, my community has been ravaged in Massachusetts from heroin addiction. There were 90,000 overdoses last year in 2020. Think if they put every one of those on the TV, on the media, every single day, every hour, we got another heroin overdose. We got another heroin overdose. Do you think they would pay attention then? No. You know, maybe actually they would because it's mind control, the easiest thing, right? The most core principle of mind control, repetition. MK Ultra, they put people in a sleep-induced coma for 23 days, played messages to them 250,000 plus times. I'll tell you what, Ricky, the vaccine propaganda is coming up on 250,000 times through my brain. Like just in the different hits everywhere, man. It's omnipresent and we're in the fight of our lives. You know, we need to stand up for each other, put our bullshit differences aside, regardless of what they are, these little minuscule differences, that shit's got to go for all of us, you know, and we got to stand up, dude. I won't wear a mask. I won't do it. Doesn't matter what they say. I won't do it. I'll take my business elsewhere. I'll try to assert my rights. I've tried to do that, but man, it takes some fortitude to. One thing I love that I heard that keeps resonating with me. It is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Do you think I give a fuck what people think about me? I wear sombreros and I fucking go around and tell people I was a heroin addict and wanted to kill myself. I'm like, I don't care. That was me before, man. It was just a past life. Here I am trying to do the right thing, trying to like stand up for these kids, for myself. You
I
know,
think you hit,
for my family, it's like,
I think you hit right on the spot there. The problem with people is they care what other people thinks.
it
And
breeds
that's
mental
that,
illness when you do
yeah,
that.
and that's how society works. Because one person says something and the other guy or girl somehow cares about a random stranger's opinion for some fucked up reason.
And in the end, how does that affect your life? It doesn't. I mean, if somebody thinks I'm an idiot, it doesn't affect my life in any way, shape, or form. Physically, I'm still the same person. And with the whole the vaccine thing, I think some people are still missing the point. They got people arguing about what the vaccine, if it's gene therapy, or if it's actually a vaccine, which I don't think it is, or the right or wrong one. And I think as soon as you get into the argument, I think they diverted us away from the point that no matter what, we still don't know what's in the vial. They can label it whatever they want. We still don't know what's in the vial. And so
They're criminals. They all have a criminal history.
Yeah.
I mean, a well-storied criminal history. It's not even debatable. 4.7 billion and counting for Pfizer. Billions upon billions of, on Johnson & Johnson and all these babies that got sick and injured. Like, and they're allowed to just continue to operate. Ricky, imagine if we got caught with a bag of weed in the wrong state. In Texas, like years ago, they used to do 5 years hard time for a joint. I was hanging out with a guy last night. He's like 67 years old. I met him through this Freedom Cell community. Like we're building community here in Charlotte and all over the place. You guys should look into that, freedomcells.org. That's Derek Bros and John Bush's thing, Ricky. And I've just met so many people, man. I've been traveling all over the place, building community. We're building gardens, like stuff like that. But yeah, just to go back to what you were saying about, caring what other people think, like how it breeds mental illness. Marcus Aurelius said, it never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. Like that explains a lot.
There.
That explains a lot with what we're seeing in the world, because I have so many friends that are insecure, man. I've been there. I had my ears pierced when I was like 21. I was going like fake tanning and shit. Like, just ridiculous things, caring about ridiculous things. And now it's like, I want to live finally. And I'm like just figuring out how to express myself truly, because as a heroin addict, you're not doing that, obviously, and now people are saying like, oh, you can't speak. I had videos deleted on YouTube, Ricky, when I had like 62 subscribers. I'm like going around doing investigations and they're like taking my videos down. I'm like, I have all these people that are like, man, you should have so many more subscribers. Like I went and investigated a pop-up vaccine clinic the other day to see if they were like, meeting requirements for informed consent. After about an hour of like, I was acting like I wanted to get vaccinated. I was like, oh, I love vaccines. They've done so much for my life. I can't wait to get my vaccine. And then I went and said to him, I was like, I don't really think it's safe and effective, but I was like, I just want my freedoms back. I was like saying that to him. It was like, but they called the cops. Once they realized that they could not answer our questions, they called the cops. 3 police officers showed up. It's on my channel. It's so ridiculous. Like literally, I'm at a vaccine clinic, no police around at all. And it's in the back of a church. It's in the back of a church. That's how they're getting these people with local communities. They're getting the pastors, they're getting everyone involved. They're like going to people's homes and knocking on their doors. Hey, do you want to get vaccinated? Like, get the fuck out of here. No.
That's the Event 201
Yeah.
strategy. They talked about getting the pastors and stuff.
Getting the pastors, silencing us, right? Silencing domestic extremists like us. I'm a crazy conspiracy theorist. People, you know what people say to me, Ricky, sometimes? They're like, are you controlled opposition? Like you're wearing that sombrero and you're just yelling things. I'm like, no, I'm a fucking pissed off person. I don't always like recall everything correctly, but like I got it kind of figured out. It's like, this shit ain't working, son. like allowing predator pedophile politicians who are friends with Jeffrey Epstein to continue to dictate to us our lives. Bill Clinton goes on TV and goes, after he's been on Jeffrey Epstein's plane 27 times, he goes, "You're going to have to stay in your house." Give me a fucking break. That's all I got to say. It's like, this is bullshit, dude. We got to take our power back. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for. They've exposed them. They've exposed themselves. These fucking people have exposed themselves. And it's clear.
Have they though? Because when I speak to people, they don't know shit. I have to have both arguments for them.
Do now.
They don't even know the arguments they should have because they're so fucking stupid. So you're telling people something and they should know because that's the propaganda and they don't even know that.
I know. I don't like to say stupid and zombie and sheep anymore, or even normie, because believe me, I've done it. Ricky, last year I'd be driving down the road and I would see somebody walking in Massachusetts in July when it's 90 and humid in a mask by himself, and I'd roll down my window and I'd be like, "Take your fucking mask off." So I've gone through the 12 stages of grief with this whole thing, man. I've been angry. I've been fucking pissed off. I want to fucking kill somebody. And now I'm like, all right, this shit ain't going anywhere. And I know it's a mind control psychological operation on people like us too, because they want us in fear of their little bio-digital convergence, right? And their great reset. They're not as powerful as they think they are, dude. They really are not. And when we could realize, just take a step back, take a breath, and be like, man, there's so much beauty out there. This right here, us five, pretty much strangers never met in person, I'm guessing, can come together, have a conversation, question a bunch of shit. I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned.
So Andrew, you had said something earlier that was, there's nothing healthy about becoming normalized by sick society or fitting into well-adjusted. Yeah. And there was something that I had mentioned in an email to Adam from Deborah Gets Red Pilled, because we kind of talked about addictions, and I had my own in the past. Mine was alcohol. But I had told him, I said, I kind of have a theory about people who are very creative, they're thinkers, they're open-mindedness. And I think a lot of us end up turning to that, because when we're shoved this square box society that doesn't make any sense with all these straight lines and limitations, that when you can't handle it, what do you turn to? You turn to something that allows you to escape out of that reality of that square fucking box. That's what it is for me.
Escapism, right? It's just,
yeah. And I make my own wine, so I still drink alcohol. I just learned how to control it to the point where I just use it. I just use it at the end of the day to numb myself from the upside down world that I still have to live in, because it's disturbing. Especially if you care about people. If you care about people and you watch them and they're walking towards the cliff. I went through this whole thing with health. I fixed myself. I lost 60 pounds. I repaired cardiovascular disease, the metabolism. I got tons of energy now. And then you want to spread it. And you see people walking towards a cliff, and it's just because they're so programmed, they just keep walking away, and it's painful. Yeah. So, and you got to find some release from that. Some of that for me is like in podcasting and stuff, but I think that's what drives a lot of these people who kind of see some truth to the addictions, because it allows us to escape that word, at least that's what the psilocybin is about.
So psilocybin,
yeah. I mean, it's great at eliminating PTSD, because it allows people to go into another realm to work through that problem that kind of destroyed them psychologically, and then it's
trauma. Yeah, you got to get to the root cause of it, and nothing ever did for me, man. Everything that society told me to do, to get better. Take these pills, go meet this therapist. They didn't work, man. They don't work. That's why my podcast is not to plug it or anything, but it's like, I feel like it's relevant to the conversation. It's called Go Within to Get Out, there's nobody coming to save you, man.
What's the name
Jesus
of the
isn't
podcast?
coming to save you. You know, there's no Muhammad, nothing. Nobody's going to come and save you but you, you know. I took 7 grams of psilocybin last year in August. Like I went camping by myself, like miles out in the woods. And this was at a time when like Black Lives Matter was burning fucking cities to the ground. And the whole pedophile thing has just been totally exposed. And I was so pissed off, and I was like searching for answers. Me and my family were divided, dude. You want to talk about divide and conquer? I had a cousin that told me to kill myself because of the whole thing with COVID. After knowing everything that I had been through with a heroin addiction, tells me to kill myself. I've forgiven him for this, but it's like, I had a brother that wouldn't talk to me for a year, a mom that told me I wasn't good enough for love, like an uncle that wanted to kick me in the head. You know, so I was at a time when I was just fucking pissed off. So I took 7 grams of psilocybin. It made me relive a traumatic memory as a child, like when I was abused. It was just one time, but it was like deep in my subconscious. And I was like literally like curled up in a ball in a tent in the middle of the woods, like bawling my eyes out on 7 grams, like psilocybin. That's a monster dose. Like, I think, I forget who said it, but they say 5 grams is they call it the hero's journey. And let me tell you, man, it's fucking true.
I think
like
Graham Hancock calls it that, right? It might have been Graham Hancock who called it like the hero.
Yeah, I think it was Graham Hancock. And it's what a bumpy ride, you know. Like it started out, it was like so dark, and I was seeing all these children's toys, and I was hearing the screams of like every child that was like suffering and in pain, like all of it, like simultaneously. And it seemed like it was like 25 lifetimes. And it was just so dark, and I'm like bawling my eyes out about this. And then it transfers into this memory I had as a kid when I was like 4 or 5, right before I started wetting the bed. They say bedwetting is actually a reaction to trauma. And right before I found out about that, I had a conversation with a friend and his wife. And she was telling me, she was like, because I was telling about my bedwetting, and this was before I knew this happened. She's like, hey, did you know that bedwetting's like, you know, a result of early childhood trauma? And I was like, no. I was like, I thought I heard about that somewhere. And it was like I was avoiding going and like looking into it and researching it. And then all of a sudden, like a month later, I had this experience, and it was like, it unlocked it. And I just had these feelings of anger and resentment and like wanting to kill somebody. And then I got to a place of forgiveness. And I literally I took the knife out of my pocket. I cut a hole in my tent, my brand new tent, the first night I was using my tent ever. And I exploded out of this tent like a fucking rebirth. And it was like the craziest thunderstorm. And it was like, I just sat there in the rain and was like, had my palms to the sky. I was like, I'm sorry. Like, because we contribute to this fucking fucked up evil world too. You know, we all do. So it's like, we take accountability, like try to be a different person moving forward, and like you're on the right path. You know what I mean? Like, do no harm. It's a real simple principle. That's why, like, if people want to try to put a label on me, good luck. But, you know, maybe anarchist voluntarius, you know, anarchy, the word comes from 2 Latin verbs, and an archon. It means without rulers. It doesn't mean without rules. It means no masters, no slaves. That's what the word means. It doesn't mean chaos. That's it, man. It's like more self-ownership, self-responsibility, you know, and like doing the right thing. That's what I'm trying to tap into.
So there's when you were talking about going back with the psilocybin and addressing things in the past, I had listened to a podcast of a naturopath that actually used therapy in his office to help people work past problems. And some of them took a long time. And he said one guy, he had to work all the way back to when he was a child, and the trauma he was experiencing as an adult led all the way back to a time when his parents were visiting a farm, and he was in a stroller, and his parents walked away from him, and a cow came up and licked him in the face. And when he was able to address it through the therapy, it was over. the dude was better after that. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's the cyberpsilum. I've never tried it, but it's
So
something I've heard.
it's psilocybin, not to be like technical or anything.
Yeah,
but
I screwed it up.
it's all
Got
right,
some-
man. It's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
I got some
no,
good
it's just-
information on that.
Yeah,
Actually.
it's just so powerful, man. You don't. It's hard to put into words. They have a term for it. It's called ineffable, right? It's like literally impossible to put into words. I mean,
So
for someone like
changes
Shrooms, right?
Yeah,
Or-
changes are coming for sure. In California, I just learned today. I was in a mushroom psilocybin group on Clubhouse, and it's a morning and Saturday mornings at 6:15. You know, it's a kind of like a coffee hour. You go in there, you hang out, and they talk about different things that are happening in that world or in that space. And in California, Senate Bill 519 is on the Senate floor, which is to decriminalize a couple of different psychedelic drugs. And mushrooms are one of them. Ketamine, I imagine, is another one. But look it up. I mean, it's happening in 2 weeks. I think they're going to vote on it. And if it does happen,
it's so. I do enjoy good news like that for sure, and I'm happy for people that live there. But it's like it's too slow. They give us these little crumbs. I forget who was talking about it earlier, but like they take, I think it was you, Cody, where like they take 10 things from you and they give you back like 4 or 5, and they expect you to be happy. And it's like, no, bro, we want it all. This opportunity, like we want it all. It's not good enough to be like. That's how I've been looking at this whole like where Joe Biden goes, pedophile, creepy Joe Biden goes, it's vaxxed or masked, you know, while he's kept alive for 3 hours a day. Joe Biden, pedophile, creepy Joe Biden wants to tell me that I got to wear a mask. But I'm looking at it the same thing as like the stimulus checks last year. Right about when people would have actually really cared and done something, right about that little fine line of them being like, no, enough. Here's a $1,200 stimulus check. And everyone I know is like, thank you, government. You're amazing. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, they're printing money at breakneck speed, trillions of dollars. It's like, I try to explain to people when I go out and talk to them, I'm like, do you know how big $1 trillion is? I'm like, it takes like 31 days to count to 1 million. It takes like 31 years to count to 1 billion. It takes like 31, I don't know, 1,000 years to count to 1 trillion. Gives you a little perspective on like, they give you $1,200. They give $1 billion to the Smithsonian so they can lie about dinosaurs and cover up giants. Like a fucking $1 billion to the Smithsonian. And they give you $600 and expect us to like just bow down at the altar of government, which means nothing more than mind control. It literally means that.
Well, the old lady said it's what did he say? She said it's a lot of money for people or something. Pelosi, when she gave out the money.
Yeah.
I was like, 1 year, 600? Are you crazy, woman?
Oh
well, and the trauma. I mean, you know, when you were sharing your story, Andrew, and thanks for being super honest. And
oh, you can call me Andy, by the way.
Andy.
I probably should have changed that, but yeah,
it's
call
hard.
me Andy.
So thanks, Andy. I appreciate you. I love people who are willing to be an open book, because I think a lot, even though it's hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
I think people get a lot out of it, because there's so many people who aren't willing to share their own story out of worrying about being criticized or looked at different, or maybe it's just so personal. And when people do share those stories, people realize like, okay, I'm not the only one dealing with these internal just traumas and all these things. And that's the thing, like hearing about your story, it reminds me of like, and something I keep telling people, I'm like, the trauma that kids and even adults are going to have to deal with after this last year of being locked down, about you know, you're talking about weeks and months and maybe even more than a year of anxiety for a lot of people, depression, a lack of community. It's going to have long-term effects, and it's might be so deep in our subconscious that it's going to affect our ability to love or enjoy life, or affect us in so many different ways that we're not even aware of. So it's not all going to be on the surface where it's going to be obvious, like, oh, I had all this anxiety. It's obvious it had some effect on me. It's like, no, it could be even deeper than that. And you know, something else you said, Andy, that I think was really important was, you know, I go back and forth with this whole thing of, in a way you want to shake people and be like, dude, stop being a fucking idiot. Like, it's obvious. It's either, if you don't see it, it's either because you just don't want to see it, because like Cody was saying, ignorance is bliss. Like,
Rocks your worldview, man.
yeah. And I think
It's a painful process where it requires humility. The hardest thing in the world for us to do is to admit I was fucking wrong, you know?
absolutely
I was wrong.
Yeah.
And to be like, it's so hard to admit that you bought the lie, right? Or it's hard to even admit that they sold you a lie, number one. And number two, it's 50 times as hard to be like, yeah, I bought it. Think about the people that have been masked up for a year. Do you think that they're gonna be in a position psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually to decide, you know, this was a bad idea and I was wrong for a year? I suffocated my children. I didn't stand up. One of these crazy, like, if you guys heard of the White Rose movement, where they like the sticker campaign, where they post like anti-COVID stickers and stuff like that. So it was like a group. It was a group in Nazi Germany that like the idea stems from this group, and they were like, it was like a leaflet campaign to like combat the propaganda of the Nazis, to like try and, it was like, imagine people like us in the situation we're in today, just going around, you know, painting things like on public transportation and in the subway that says like, you know, if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes COVID-19, or like, you know, or like a picture of a guy with a full gas mask on and a hazmat suit, and it says, this is the guy calling you a conspiracy theorist, you know, like those kinds of things. But these leaders in Nazi Germany, they had this idea to spread these leaflets, and they actually got caught and got killed, but they like resurrected that for this whole, no, I call it Novid-19, Novid, because they have not even proven to isolate or purify anything. And this book right here, this is like radioactive material, dude. Like,
I just bought that book.
you can't get it, dude. You can't get this book on Amazon. They delisted it on Barnes and Noble, and it talks all about this book, dude. This book changed me. This challenges germ theory. Louis Pasteur was a certifiable fraud. He used to inject poisons into like the control group in experiments with poisonous toxins, and then we'd be like, see, it's contagious. Like, on his deathbed, right? Louis Pasteur, who was a Freemason, on his deathbed, he said, he had a deathbed confession: the germ is nothing, the terrain is everything. That was what the guy who invented or like created the idea of germ theory, Louis Pasteur, a certifiable fraud. But they don't want you to know about this. They don't want you to know about this. It was on Amazon. You could get it on Amazon. It started becoming popular and many people were buying it. They took it off.
Where did you, Cody, where did you get it? You said you purchased it.
I originally started following Dr. Cohen through a couple podcasts I'd listened to. I bought his book, Cosmic Heart, Human Heart, which is really good. And the basis of that is the structured water, and that the heart is not a pump. And then he has another book on cancer. And then I just started reading it, but I got it from his website.
He's been on my show some years ago.
He's good.
Yep.
Yeah. I gotta go listen to that, man.
Yeah.
Ricky, when I found your show, I was like, it was almost like your podcast kind of found me. You know, I believe in like synchronicities and stuff, because I was like, man, this is a Boston guy. I was actually trying to get a hold of you last year. I was like, man, I really want, like I want to meet you, man. If I come back there, we definitely got to meet up, because I was like, I just resonated with you, and I was like, I love the name Ripple Effect, because that's how it's got to be, man. They want us like talking on all these things, looking through screens. But at the end of the day, we got to do more of that, like one-on-one, in person, have something physical that you can like hand out. Like, are masks safe? Like, there's information, there's doctors in here, and you explain to them, hey, believe what you want, please, by all means, don't believe me. That's what I always say to people. I'm like, don't believe me, but don't dismiss anything I say either. Yeah, I'm passionate. Yeah, I get fired up. Like, I'm going to try to stay calm. But it's like if you have something physical to hand them and you're like, you explain to them like, hey, this censorship thing is a problem. They've deleted like over 100,000 videos on the second largest search engine in the world, YouTube. They just took down one of my videos because I had a conversation with a black man, a white man and a black man. They don't want you to see this, right? Where at the end of the video, after I talked to him about like Vietnam, because he was a Vietnam vet, he was working at Walmart. I'm telling him about the immune system and potential solutions. And I'll try not to say the words on here, but I mentioned two names, H and it's so ridiculous trying to censor yourself, but you kind of know what I'm saying. They took my video down.
Just say it, Andy. Fuck YouTube.
All right, hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Oh God. I said that in this video, and they fucking took my channel down or took my video down. So fucking ridiculous, dude. Like, I have so much good shit I've tried to upload there. I have an Odyssey channel too. I'm just like, I'm a little behind on these videos.
You can sync.
I am on Odyssey.
Yeah.
So
you can sync your YouTube channel right
there. I've already done it. Yeah.
Which saves obviously a lot of time, because that's one of the reasons why people don't want to keep going to all these platforms. But the Ripple Effect podcast is actually now just recently on Rumble and Minds. So now it's on Odyssey, obviously Library, because it's the same thing. It's on Rockfin, Float, BitChute, Rumble, and Minds. So
damn, dude, that's a laundry list.
Yeah. So I don't give a shit where. And so this episode, you guys will also be on all those platforms because you're on this episode. So, yeah. So, but that's the thing. Like, I'm at the point where like the majority of people who listen to the Ripple Effect podcast listen to the Ripple Effect podcast. They don't watch it. So I don't, I put it everywhere because I am getting some new listeners from people who run into it on these other platforms. So it's like, why not? And if they're not censoring people, then if for no other reason, I'll put it on there just to support them. Because if Rumble and Minds and Odyssey and BitChute are letting people have these free and open conversations, then I'm more than happy to throw my stuff on there and support what they're doing. And that's the thing, like so many of these things, it's kind of funny because I've said this a lot, where it's just like, if you listen to the episodes that people are censoring, a lot of times it sounds really innocent. I mean, I had my Kevin Sorbo podcast. I did get ripped off YouTube, and then I had the Pete Evans one who's an Australian chef and also podcaster, get ripped off YouTube. But if I went back and listened to some of those podcasts, I'm like, what did we say that was? And I'm like, it's nothing that I don't say on other episodes. And I'm like, it's just, and we're literally just sharing ideas. I mean, I'm not an expert at anything. I mean, I'll be the first one to say I'm an idiot. I'll sit here and I like to explore ideas. I'm a curious person. And I think that's probably the appeal of the show, is the fact that my curiosity brings in a lot of different guests, a lot of different conversations, and people like that. And, I say, hey, dude, in my experiences, this is, vitamins have worked. There's research that shows this, there's research that shows that. Nothing I say is a lie. I'm not like, trying to sell, snake oil, so it's just one of those things where just like when I meet people in person, and then they're like, oh, I hear you have a podcast now. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, I've had some issues with censorship. And they're like, really? You don't seem dangerous. And I'm like, yeah, most of the people aren't. What they're considering, like, would think is dangerous speech that should be censored to some extent. Like, it's not the people who are being banned off YouTube. I mean, a lot of these people are just sharing ideas, having open discussions. And a lot of this
That's the danger.
That's the danger.
That's the danger, is free thought. You're breaking out of the paradigm that the people who have the power are trying to control you. So anybody in any topic that's actually going out of that paradigm are going to be considered a threat. And the name, I love the name of your podcast, and it actually put a name to something that I tried explaining to people, because when you try to get into finding out, for instance, I started out just trying how to figure out how to fix myself, how the body works, how biological systems work. And when you start looking for that stuff, you have a million points of light coming at you, and most of them are trying to sell you something. So that getting to that first person where you I think the first person to for me was Dr. Barry Sears. He was the guy who kind of formulated the zone diet, which I still think is, I don't really follow it, but I still think it's a very good diet. But he was the first one I got to that I thought, this guy's actually trying to teach me on how to walk through the grocery store and how hormonally each thing that I buy, how it affects me. And then what you find though is, well, okay, I found one person I can trust. Who trusts that guy? And then you find 5 other podcasts that actually have interviewed him who are interesting. And then but that's what it is. It's a ripple effect. I was told people, it's like once you find that first door of trust in somebody, that opens up it's like exponential numbers after that. And that's why I think I'm up to like 70 different podcasts that I download. I don't listen to all the podcasts. I kind of sort through them, but it was through a couple different podcasts where I thought they were actually they personally had interest in fixing the person, and monetary gain wasn't their top one. Another one was Rob Wolf. He's still somebody that I still listen to because I just think sincerely he cares about people. So
Yeah, I love Rob Wolf. He's one of those people I want to kind of check off my bucket list. I would love to have on him, and I'm a big fan of Mark Sisson. He's another one who's phenomenal, and
Get Eric Dubé on.
Eric Dubé, yeah.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man. Say what you will, but I love the exploration of that. I'm just getting into it, but like I've had conversations with people, and I just say, this is gonna be a little crazy, but if you put 15 to 20 minutes of like honest, objective research, like wiping your biases clean, it's a little doorway into an interesting place, is how I would describe it.
Well, Marty Leeds had a very good documentary on the topic. He had one of the best documentaries. I forget what it's called. I'm sure it's still available on his website, but a little inside baseball. We do have a Union of Unwanted episode scheduled on that topic, so it's gonna be coming up, soon. And
dude, let me get in on that show.
and so it's gonna be interesting.
I'll drive up. I'll sit in the studio with you, and we'll have a fucking beer together. And I'll put my Kyrie Irving shirt on because the only fucking thing I ever liked that he said was the Earth was flat. That's the only thing I like about Kyrie Irving.
I did like him as a thinker. Like he seemed interesting. Like, okay, he seems like he's not a very good teammate. He's obviously very skilled. I mean, a phenomenal player. But I'm like, I feel like if I sat down and hung out with him, we would have some pretty cool conversations. Like he's pretty open minded to some shit. But if you come to my
studio, I think he's also doing shit like this now too.
Well, his sneakers, his sneakers are actually super comfy. I use a lot of the Kyries for basketball when I play, and he has all type of like symbolism and stuff like that in his logos and stuff. So he seems like somebody and he seemed like he backtracked because of the public pressure of like, hey,
backlash.
Yeah, the backlash. But like you guys have been saying, it's so important. Like I always say, like my wife's like is a sweetheart, but she wants everybody to like her. And
that's a problem.
It is, because it bothers her for, if somebody doesn't like, why doesn't she like me? Why is she so mean to me? Why is she? And I'm like, Gina, the only opinions that matter are people who actually know you, people who actually love you. I'm like, if somebody who I love and is dear and near to my heart and we're close, if they have a problem with the way I'm acting, or we have some beef, I'm like, I want to resolve it. That's important to me. But if some fucking stranger doesn't, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, I've been doing this podcast since late 2013. I've had a lot of nice things said to me. I've had amazing feedback. But yeah, I've had a lot of shitheads too that will say things. Especially me, because it's easy to pick on me. I fuck up words all the time. I fuck up quotes all the time. I literally fuck up all the time. So it's not that hard. Sometimes I talk too much on episodes and whatever. I'm like, there's nothing. And I'm one, like everybody who's kind of who cares, like nobody's gonna critique ourselves more than ourselves, right? And so like nothing, like there's been episodes where I upload and I'm like, I fucking talked. I was too worked up for that episode. I'm like, I talked too much. I'm like, somebody's gonna say something. Like, I'm sure somebody's gonna say something. And
That's why I said earlier, bro, caring what others think about you breeds mental illness. Like,
it does. But the thing is,
that's not productive for us. Like, yeah, you want a critical eye, you want to like do things a little bit better. But like even me, man, I've had such a hard time like accepting all this, that this is actually our world now and it's happening, that like I walk down the street and we're outdoors on a beautiful warm day and there's a 2-year-old in a mask. Like, I don't know how some people walk by that and don't get fucking pissed off. Like, the day that I walk by something like that and that actually doesn't bother me, I'm going to be bothered by that because I'm less human at that point. You know, it's like, yeah, you want to be able to try to control your emotions, but how does this shit not bother anybody else? Like,
I kind of like in 2020, I've almost gotten a better understanding of Alex Jones. It's really helped me understand his anger, because it's like you think about how long he's been doing it and how much information and whistleblowers he's talked to and people who have come on his show. I mean, like him or not, I mean, so many really respected and really intelligent people have at some point been on Alex Jones's show. He has a huge platform. He's helped, expose us to many great researchers and content creators and authors and whistleblowers. Consuming that information every day on a daily show, like, I can see why he gets worked up, because like you were saying, Andy, like, I get worked up talking about this stuff. I get worked up when I see kids like this and, wearing masks and again, like, and I think I was going to make this point previously, but then I got off track. But it's and I have this love-hate relationship with like people who are completely brainwashed. I'm like, in a way, I'm upset. I'm like, dude, you have enough evidence. You have to be able to see through this. But in another way, I feel bad for them. And like Andy, you were saying, and I'm sure we all agree that it's an unfair fight, because there's so much money and resources and psychology that goes into every single thing we're consuming visually and everything we're hearing, everything we're seeing on TV, commercials, cartoons, like you were saying with the kids cartoons, like
French fry boxes, dude.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much manipulation constantly fighting to brainwash us and make us think and feel a certain way, that it's almost like, okay, I almost don't feel bad. Like, I almost can't just call them idiots because I'm like, it's an unfair battle. This person's going to work every day, doing their everyday priorities, all this stuff. They don't realize that, like, the radio they're listening to, the commercial that's on TV, all this stuff is little by little influencing the way they think and the way they perceive the world. And, it takes, a special person to kind of see through that. And I think everybody has their own journey on what led them there, and I think it's different for everybody. But some people, it's drastically out of nowhere, your whole life view, or your whole world view, I should say, shatters. And then some people, it's like it's a little baby steps you take. Like, you chip away at their worldview a little bit. I run into Andy somewhere and he tells me some information. I'm like, oh, that shit's interesting, I should look into that. But then I don't, because I'm busy, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, it could be a conspiracy theory, lunatic wearing a sombrero. but and then I run into Cody, and we're having a glass of his wine, and then next thing you know, he brings up some shit, and then I'm like, this Cody guy's now saying the same thing Andrew's saying. So, and then we go, and little by little. So I think sometimes we get disappointed that in one conversation we don't get through to somebody, but we're all contributing. We're all like, they might run into Andy's podcast, and then they might run into Sean's podcast.
You're planting seeds.
Yeah, and then
You're planting seeds. I guess the depressing thing comes in for me is when you find out that what was his name in the Matrix?
Neo?
Cypher.
Oh,
So remember Cypher?
Yeah, with the
he wanted to go back in the Matrix, and you start talking to people, and you realize they're like, no, I don't want to be a part of that world, because I'm being taken care of right now. And it's like, well, they're going to eventually take care of you, kind of like, a rabid dog you take behind a woodshed. So, but
man, I'm staying at an Airbnb right now. So when I left Massachusetts, I left like 3 days before Christmas, and me and my family were just like at odds, man. I was able to say goodbye to them on like a pretty good note, but my mom wanted me to wear a mask to go and hug them. Like, to leave, and like my 90-year-old grandmother's there. Might have been, I don't know how much longer she's actually in the hospital right now, man. And they're like only letting like one person go and see her per day.
And you know how
Bro.
important that is when you're sick in the
Whoa,
hospital,
it's
having
so
family there, having people that you recognize to hold your hand, and just, I mean, so the placebo effect exists, and it was funny because Joe Rogan finally started talking about this not too long ago, about the nocebo effect, this, how the same thing can happen in reverse. Like the placebo effect, we always related to, okay, you think you're feeling better, so you do feel better and you do heal and you do get better, but the opposite can happen too. If you're in the hospital, no family or friends, and you're around all this negativity and you're around other people that are sick and dying, you're going to start thinking you're sick and dying. I mean, how many people who got COVID, the symptoms were worse? People who did get sick and tested positive, the symptoms were worse because everybody's telling you how dangerous and contagious this virus is. And that's what was making you sick and making you nervous and making these symptoms so bad. It was this, I mean, if you think you're sick, sometimes you will feel sick, so it's yeah, I mean,
that's called illness behavior.
That's most likely everybody.
That's
I have
called.
a new thing. When I think thoughts that I shouldn't think, I actually put my hand on my head, like grabbing them and throwing them away.
Nice.
For
I like that.
every time, like just throw it away.
well, sometimes stuff like that works. I've talked about this before, about if you're really mad and you want to send out a text message, like write it all out and then just delete it. Don't send it, but it makes you feel better because you wrote it out, so it's like
Actually, it does. Yeah, it does.
I tried that once. It worked. Some.
You're expressing yourself.
Yeah.
I usually
sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, I usually record like thoughts on video, even if I don't post them. Like I saw that concert to unite the world last year. It was called like One World Order, or One World Together at Home. Do you remember that?
I
last year.
I remember them marketing it and stuff, but I didn't know too much.
And it was so bad where like they had a Sesame Street character, and she's like, it was like this little Sesame Street character, and it was like, when I'm getting these big feelings and I'm sad and upset, she's like, I'll just give myself a self hug, like promoting like isolation and like among children. I mean, dude, it's so dark. And
I used to get super pissed because when the kids started playing soccer again, I was like super happy that I'm like, at least like programs, they're going to be, my kids are homeschooled after the whole mask thing, and probably aren't going back to school unless
you're a visionary, Ricky.
Yeah.
You're a visionary, a homeschool parent. That's a visionary these days. And it truly is, because I mean, dude, like I was saying earlier, these kids can get vaccinated without the knowledge or consent of their parents at 12 years old. Dude, yeah, I had a 12-year-old say to me a few months ago, we were like going into a dollar store, and he's like, no, I can't go in there. And I was like, why, bud? And he's like, I don't have a mask. And I'm like, it's okay. You don't need one. I'm like, we can walk in together. Nobody's going to say anything. I've been in there many times. And he's like, no, he's like, if I don't wear a mask, he's like, it might kill me. I was like, dude, to have a 12-year-old even thinking those things or saying those things, I mean, I shouldn't need to, obviously don't need to explain to any of you here, but it's just dehumanizing. It's crushing at times, when you hear about that. I saw even the New York Times covered that story about like a 9-year-old boy that killed himself and left a letter that said, there's nothing left to look forward to. And it was like, I don't want to personally think that, but like the New York Times covered that shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, how could any of us accept any of this? Like I was talking about earlier with the overdose deaths and, the suicide rate and alcohol sales being up.
Why are those fucking
180% last year?
Why are they important? Like, that's the thing that pisses me off so much. I was going to say, like, when my kids started playing soccer, one thing that really pissed me off was that the coaches couldn't touch the kids. So when the kids get hurt, like naturally the coaches go and check on them, like pick them up and hug them
So
or
they can't
whatever.
even check on them.
So
That's
they
amazing.
would have to stay like 6 feet away from these kids and just kind of observe them and be like, are you okay? Are you okay? And you could tell the kids were confused. They're like, I don't get it. Why isn't anybody comforting me? And it's like you, and if
That's when a parent. That's when a parent goes out there and like, okay,
dude,
like
it was crazy. I saw kids get hurt, and because the coach couldn't touch them to bring them to the parents, the kids would have to like, bring their themselves to the parents like limping because they just sank or whatever. I'm like, why don't somebody just fucking help that kid? I'd do it, but I was scared that the parent would get mad at me for touching their kid, So I'm like, now I'm in a shitty, but I'm like, that type of stuff drives me so much. If every life mattered, and that was that thing you kept hearing, like, oh, just stay home, even if it saves one life.
we're in this together.
Yeah, where the fuck are those people when we're talking about suicide rates that were higher than COVID deaths in California, all the alcoholism, child abuse, like we've been talking about nonstop, the trauma. Don't those things matter? If you really care about helping humanity, how about like starvation, right? Like 20,000 people, or no, maybe I'm way off. Like maybe more than that.
Millions.
Yeah, maybe I forget how many thousands of people die a day of starvation, or maybe millions. But that's something we don't need a test for. We don't need to debate. We just feed them and the problem's solved. And we're not coming together to try to solve that problem. And that many more people die of that than any whatever virus, whatever you want to believe. So it's just like we don't put things in perspective. I mean, it's almost like people were naive to. And the other thing that drives me nuts, in America, and Ronnie, you can probably relate to this, because in Europe we take care of our old people there. Like your parents don't go to a nursing home. Like the family lives together until they pass away, because it's almost like you're returning the favor. They took care of you, and not all parents, because there's some shitty parents out there, but if the parents were decent and they took care of you, you return the favor by taking care of them when they get older, right? In America it's like, nah, I'm too busy, I can't take care of mom anymore, we got to throw in a nursing home, and it's like, oh, what? And then all of a sudden 2020 came around. It's like, we have to protect the old people. I'm like, you motherfuckers don't give a shit about old people. I'm like, how many people are in nursing homes and die prematurely, not because of natural causes, but because they're in a nursing home? And we all know that they don't treat people well in nursing homes. They don't take care of people well in nursing homes. And when you don't have family around you to give you a reason to live, I've heard old people say after they've lost their spouses, like, I don't see my kids anymore. Everybody's doing their own thing. Like, oh, I'm kind of just a nuisance for people, and that's a lot of, I mean, what's that? I think there's actually a name for when a spouse dies and soon after the other one dies from loneliness. I think they call it just maybe death by loneliness or whatever, but that's a real fucking thing. And you're throwing people into nursing homes all the time. They're lonely, and it's like, so we're all these things, and all of a sudden in 2020, all of a sudden in America, we care about like taking care of all. It's like, no, all you're doing is justifying. And we talked about the money thing. That's one thing I actually haven't brought up on the podcast before, but it's a really good point. Like, right, people would have been much more upset if you're shutting things down and doing all this stuff and not giving them money. The money kind of helped people be like, I think it kind of gave motivation for some people, like, yeah, just stay at home. And then in the the fine print is, because I'm making $1,200 to $100 a week and I don't want to go back to work, just stay at home, save a life, because I actually like remote, doing work from home and not having to get, not having to wear pants when I'm on a Zoom conference call, like whatever it is. It's like, how many of those people were actually motivated by financial things because of selfish things, because it was more convenient to just stay home and not have to go to a workplace, or whatever it may be. Like, it wasn't for moral good reasons, but yet that's what they were telling the world. They're telling the world, it's like, no, follow these rules because we're saving lives, because of be a moral person and do what's right and be unselfish, when really a lot of these people were just motivated by selfish reasons, and in many cases even political reasons, which even more selfish. That you're ignoring facts, you're ignoring researchers, you're ignoring doctors that are going against the grain, all because your political party is telling you to do so. And it's like, you don't care about truth, you don't care about like people's lives, but in a way it's like, these are people. We've talked about psychedelics, you guys have probably heard me talk about this on my show, or you probably even heard the episode that I had with Dennis McKenna. First time I had him on, we had an amazing conversation about plant medicines. We talked about MDMA and all the research he's done, a lifelong just researcher in the benefits of plant medicines. The second time he was on, which was probably bad timing, it was right before the election, he goes on this pro-Biden anti-Trump rant. And I'm like, holy fuck. Psychedelics can't save us all, apparently. Like, it just, I'm like, this dude
Joe Rogan, man. Joe Rogan, look at him. Look at the trajectory he's taken. I mean, that guy had a big influence on my life and waking up. The very first podcast I ever listened to was that podcast Joe Rogan did with David Goggins, the Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
The ultra marathon runner. He wrote the book Can't Hurt Me. I read that book. I listened to that podcast with him and Joe Rogan for like 30 days in a row. This was when I was like suicidal. You know what I mean? And it fucking
that
changed.
sounds like an MK Ultra experiment you're talking about.
No shit, right? No shit. Repetition. That's hilarious. You said that. I was like, I actually thought about that before, but it's like transformed my life. And then I got big into Rogan and saw like he used to bring Mike Rupert on, who wrote like Crossing the Rubicon and exposed all that shit about 9/11.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like he just the trend, like his development just in the beginning, and now he brings on Peter Hotez, and Hotez does a 3.5 hour pro-vaccine like just sales pitch, and Rogan's over there going, yep.
And you know what's crazy?
As Rogan's making money on all these natural health supplements. Like,
if you guys aren't aware of this, so there's so when I was doing some research for Chris Newby, she's been on my show a couple times. She was on a while ago, and then I had her on again late last year. But she wrote a book, Bitten, and it was about Lyme disease. She got Lyme disease. She is a scientist, and then she started doing research like on Lyme disease and found out that like it could have been similar to the coronavirus. It could have came from a lab, and she finds out about all these government and military experiments dealing with viruses and all this stuff. So the first time she was on was years ago. It wasn't even like, it didn't even seem that relevant, because my only link to Lyme disease was that my wife or my mother's gotten it before, so I was always intrigued with it. And then my daughter actually ended up getting it. Was it last year? Yeah, it was sometime last year, and luckily we kind of dealt with it quickly. But I've always been intrigued with it because of the East Coast and like all the stories of it coming from Plum Island, off the coast of Lyme, Connecticut, where they experiment with stuff like this. And but anyways, to make a long story short, I was doing some research. I'm like, oh, let me look up some old stuff on Lyme disease that I haven't researched in a while, because Chris Newby was coming back on the show, and I ran into this video of Joe Rogan talking to Dr. Hotez, and I'm like, oh, I don't remember them talking about Lyme disease on that episode. So I watched a clip. It was a clip, and it was a clip of Joe Rogan basically saying like, hey, the Lyme disease vaccine, it was pulled off the market because it was actually giving people Lyme disease. And he's like, no, that's not true. I know the guy who created the Lyme disease vaccine. That's not true at all. It was those rumors are what made it not profitable, and that's why they took it off the market. And then he's like, no, I'm pretty sure I know people who've gotten Lyme disease from the vaccine or some severe illness, and that was linked to the vaccine, and that's why they pulled it. And they're like having this little debate. And then I find another episode that was before that one with him and Frankie Edgar, the MMA fighter, and he's talking about Lyme disease, and because Frankie's wife has it, and Joe Rogan says that it was either his manager or his manager's relative or somebody got Lyme disease from the vaccine, and Joe Rogan's like, yeah, he got it. He's like, without a doubt, he got it. Frankie Edgar, they're all on the same page. So he was pretty convinced that the vaccine was bad. And then he has conversation with Dr. Hotez, and you could see Joe Rogan's kind of skeptical face, like he's not buying it, because he even brings up, he's like, well, if it was all because people lost faith in the vaccine, then why is the MMR vaccine still out? He brought up the MMR vaccine. He's like, wasn't there a lot of people saying that it could cause autism? He's like, they didn't stop selling the MMR vaccine and producing the MMR vaccine. So I'm like, so the interesting part about this, and my point is that what really made me upset was that, like you said, Andy, he talks to him for 3 hours, lets him promote the shit out of vaccines, but it catches him in a deceiving moment where it was obvious that he didn't even want to put a little bit of didn't want to show any doubt whatsoever that vaccines are unsafe, that he was pushing back against this Lyme disease vaccine. And it's like, okay, well, Rogan, can't you see what he's doing? Like, he's not going to admit that any vaccines are bad ever. And like, but yet you're going to let him continue to talk and pretend he's a credible person who's just here spreading information and whatnot. And a lot of these guys have links to vaccine makers, and I mean, how is his friend the guy who created the vaccine in the first place? Like, obviously he's in those circles, you know. So which means you can also have some investments and some ties financially. But and then when I had Del Bigtree on my show, it was before the lockdown. This was or was it? I don't remember. It was maybe it was before the lockdown or sometime before that. At the end of the show, I'm like, dude, we got to get you on the Joe Rogan podcast. And he's like, Joe Rogan's a fucking pussy. He's like, I've been trying to get. I'm like, I hope people listen to this podcast till the very end. That's I
gotta listen to that.
Yeah,
dude.
it was.
He said he called Joe Rogan a pussy. Wow.
Yeah, I shared the clip because I remember sharing the clip, and I actually I remember sending it to Sam Tripoli. I'm like, hey Sam, what do you think about this? Like, because what he said, it wasn't so much, the interesting part wasn't just him saying that Joe Rogan was a pussy. It was the fact that on my show, he knew we were recording. It was the end of the episode. He goes, Joe Rogan's a pussy. He's like, I've had my people contact him. Robert Kennedy's contacted him. He's like, he's resisted any of us going on the show. He will not have us on. He will not, and I'm like, and it made me upset because I'm like, I know Del Bigtree is well known in the community. I know he can get on any show he wants if they're, or he can have his people contact anybody he wants to get on there if they're willing to have him on. I know Robert Kennedy Jr., like, that's a big name. Like, why wouldn't you let this guy on? He's a well-known attorney who's done a lot with suing DuPont and all these big chemical companies. And I'm like, why wouldn't he have him on? So I was really upset. But and then soon after this, the Spotify deal went public. And I remember it made me rethink, like, okay, maybe, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, because he does still let Eddie Bravo come on his show. He's still, he every once in a while he's.
But think about the purpose of letting Eddie come on.
You think to make him look crazy, or?
Dude, everything that like Eddie's ever said has been totally just ill-received, like stigmatized. All this crazy stuff. You know that Rogan was supposed
Alex Jones, but he had Alex. So the last time
Alex. But Alex is, I look at it as like the same kind of deal where it's like 98% of what he exposes is accurate, but then the 2% where he's pushing Trump and he's pushing this and he's pushing that is.
Yeah, but Joe Rogan, I will say, since he's been on Spotify, he has much more often talked about, and he said it. I mean, when he talked to Dave Smith recently, when he talked to, and wasn't that
you're giving him? I was viewing that. I think people have been giving him too much credit for that. That was like the closest thing to a possible question where he's like telling young kids who are healthy to like not take that. It's not a great, like, dude. Why don't you? Yeah. I mean, that's not exactly like a transformative thing or like a deep question. It's like, come on, bro.
It wouldn't be. Yeah, it was like so confrontational and so like, it was such a innocent statement, and it wasn't, but I hope that he saw how important it is to just make anybody who questions vaccines just demonize them, because he said something, like you said, that was like barely, I mean, it wasn't even an anti-vax statement. It was just like, hey, if you're young and healthy, he doesn't see a reason to have to get the vaccine. And he still said, things like, my parents got it. I'm for it if you're older, if you're high risk. So he still says all the other things to basically like say, hey, like, I'm not anti, I'm just letting you guys know I'm not anti-vaccine. But I would hope that would show him how strong the marketing and the power of propaganda is, that he says something that's so innocent, and in no time there's headlines saying Joe Rogan anti-vaxxer, Joe Rogan anti-vax comments, Joe Rogan, and then people who didn't, and I listened to the episode, I didn't think anything of it when I heard that him say that.
I knew it was going to be a big deal because it was the closest thing Joe Rogan ever got to a question about vaccines, because literally, like, I honestly, I mean, obviously I can't speculate in terms of like who he's involved with there, but there's been pictures of him with like Anton LaVey, like doing shit like this, just a little bit odd, and like you see how he covered the geoengineering stuff. Like, I don't want to say the word, because like like chemtrails. You see how how Joe Rogan's covered that.
But
He's allowed to question some things.
But Andy,
But
I think it's okay if he doesn't, because even the UFO thing, right? One thing I will give Joe Rogan a lot of credit for, and again, the vaccine thing is one of the issues that I'm the most passionate about. Having kids, also, I think because I push back against it so much because there's so much pushing against anybody who questions it. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to push right back, and so I get pretty worked up on the vaccine debate, and I'll say that's probably the topic that he's been the worst with, and probably one of the topics that he should be a little better with because it is so important.
these are children, man.
I know.
These are children.
About the vaccine issue, I saw a clip from Tucker, from the Fox guy, talking about vaccines and how they work and stuff like that. But he name dropped Robert Kennedy in there, and saying we are supposed to hate him. So I was like, he's towing the line on some issues.
Tucker does do that. I give him a lot of respect because on a mainstream show like that, he's still, every once in a while he'll do segments. I mean, Dr. Scott Jensen, who's been on my show, he's been on Tucker's show. He's had a lot of people who kind of, who you'd be surprised, like, oh shit, like you're actually pushing against the narrative a little bit. I think the thing about Joe Rogan too is his shows become so big and influential that I think he almost is afraid to be the open person he was before that was open to things. But even, and some of it maybe is he's talked about it where when he did that Joe Rogan Questions Everything show, that everybody that he met was basically full of shit, and then it made him want to like just question or made him want to question like everybody in the conspiracy theory world, like, okay, are they all full of shit? But you saw it with the UFO topic, right? For a while he was like super into it, right? There's that he talked about that tape from a long time ago. I don't know if he was on Adam Carolla's show or whatever, where he actually debated somebody on like the moon landing, and then he backtracked a little bit. But he
flip-flopped like multiple times on the moon landing.
Yeah, well, he butt heads with Neil deGrasse Tyson too about the moon landing, and some older one of the first times I think he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, they butt heads about that, and he kind of pushed back a little bit. And then he kind of got away from that type of stuff, and now that like the evidence is it's almost like it's socially acceptable to kind of go down that rabbit hole and publicly talk about it, and nobody's gonna stereotype you as like a conspiracy theorist because you have the Pentagon releasing tapes, you have mainstream media talking about UFOs and sightings. It's almost like now he has the okay to kind of say, okay, well, now this is like a legit topic we can discuss. I don't think there's anything wrong with going back and forth. Like, in other words, like deciding like, okay, I meet a couple of researchers that I think are full of shit. It's making me second guess what I thought I understood or what I believed. And then you go back and forth, because I think as curious people, we should do that. We should be open to saying like, okay, right now I believe in chemtrails. If evidence comes out that like maybe some of the researchers I liked are full of shit, maybe I'll reevaluate.
But it's different. I think it's different if you do it under pressure. If you do it under, you found more information, that's fine. But some of what I was big on Rogan, don't listen to him anymore. But what I saw was there was an outside influence and pressure that was changing what he was talking about. But I'm not fine with that.
Do you think the pressure came from just his show getting?
Yeah. I think his show became about. It used to be about just open exploration to this is now a brand. When things go to a brand, things change because now your goal is protecting the brand.
Well,
I feel the same way.
Adam Curry, I was surprised, but Adam Curry kind of let me down a little bit too, because when he was the first episode in his new studio on Spotify, and
that was horrible. I thought it was a horrible episode.
I thought it was a horrible episode too. I think don't get me wrong. Like, I'm all for like Adam Curry and No Agenda. They kill it. I mean, the whole lockdown.
Yeah, they're good.
They were so good at just like dissecting all the bullshit, giving you real information, and they really were one of the best shows during the whole lockdown. And then when he was on the show, I'm like, oh, now they're gonna kill it because he's gonna open a lot of people's eyes. And Adam Curry is not, you can't pigeonhole him as conspiracy theorist. Like, if he's saying something, it's because there's a lot of evidence there and it's legit. And then he goes on the show and they do a lot of just kind of like chit chatting and like small talk stuff. And I'm like, that's okay if there wasn't this huge issue that needs to be talked about on Joe Rogan's platform to reach more people, because it's changing lives and ruining lives as we speak. And so to me, it was kind of, I shouldn't say not responsible or I just feel like why not, if you really care about this issue and you care about what's going on in the world right now, why wouldn't you kind of take advantage of that interview?
I thought Adam Curry was trying to do that, and everything was made a joke out of because it was Rogan's first episode, and he was kind of high.
Well, listen to this, Cody. So I listened to the episode. I listened to quite a few episodes around that time that he was on Joe Rogan podcast, and Adam Curry talked about it being on the Joe Rogan podcast, the episode we're referring to, the first one in New Studio, on one of his No Agenda shows. And what surprised me was that he said that Joe Rogan brought up vaccines early in the conversation, and he's like, "Oh, I kind of had to get away from the topic, because he's like, it's a 3-hour conversation, and we opened up." Like, he asked me a question about vaccines. I'm like, hey, I'm like, I just got here. We're ready to talk about vaccines. So I'm like, wait, like, let me go back and re-listen to it. And then I re-listened to it, and I'm like, he's kind of right. It's almost like Joe Rogan opened a door. Like, he's like, I'm giving you the opportunity to like talk about this shit, because they're friends. I'm sure he knows what No Agenda was researching and the things that they were talking about and where they stand based on their podcast. So I'm sure he knew that, like Adam Curry, where he stood on this whole topic. And for him to kind of like give him the opportunity to be like, hey, okay, I'm going to spark the conversation. I'm not going to wait till it just comes up organically. I'll give you the kind of freedom to kind of bring it up and talk about it. So he and I forgot what he said, but he said something like, he brought something up with vaccines, and you could tell, but it almost shows the power of his show, that even somebody like Adam Curry, who has a huge show, his No Agenda does very well and has a huge show and a huge platform, Rogan's is so major and so big that even somebody like Adam Curry was
self-censored himself.
Yeah, and that was very telling for me. It was like, holy fuck, like, because I mean, think about it, like, there's a lot of shady stuff that's happened with Rogan since, and I don't mean shady in just like, maybe there are shady things in regards to maybe his partnerships or whatever. I don't know much about that. But one thing I do know, that when he started having politicians on, and when he started having people like Tulsi Gabbard on and Bernie Sanders, and when the world of politics understood how powerful his platform was, a lot of people started contacting him, and a lot of people started saying like, hey, I don't know what this fucking pothead, MMA comedian guy is, but let's get on his platform because he has a lot of sway. And as you know, politics, that's all they give a fuck about, is how do we influence the public? How do we get them to like us? How do we get more votes? That's why you have speech writers, right? Like, when we're listening to a speech, like, there's psychology that goes into how they say things. It's all a trick of it's wordplay. It's
Eddie Bernays.
Yeah, it's Edward Bernays. Yeah, it's propaganda. And so they understood how powerful his platform was, and that's when you start seeing. And apparently he's like, if I don't find you interesting, I'm not having you on. Like, I'm not just going to let you use my platform as a way of getting votes and getting more popular. He's like, so he had Bernie Sanders on because he's legitimately was interested in his views. He had Tulsi Gabbard because he legitimately likes her. And so when all that stuff started happening, and I don't know Joe Rogan, but I've had a lot of people on my show who do know him. If you look at, like, a lot of people who've been on my show have been on his show. I've had people on the show that are friends with him. So I started asking questions to some of those people that I knew him. And I'm just like, what do you guys think this is or that is? Or, and a lot of us believe that some of the stuff like Brian Callen, that whole thing, a lot of stuff that was going on right around the election, it was retaliation. It was like, we're gonna fuck with you, and we're gonna ruin you, and we're gonna make.
Look at even Mercola. I mean, I like Mercola. The guy is, he is so important in the movement of a lot of people fixing themselves and understanding supplements and the human body and how they could help themselves. And even him recently, he had to pull down a lot of his stuff because he was threatened. A lot of the stuff he was talking about, the vaccines recently within the last week, are gone now.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember what podcast I heard that on, but yeah, they basically had said that he needs to start reeling back some of this stuff because he derives a lot of his money from his sales online. And I don't know how he sells it, if he has his own servers and his own network, but yeah, so there's a lot of stuff, if you go back and try to look for it, is not there anymore.
Yeah, well, okay, so I had Dr. Robert Lustig on recently. I don't know if you
That's
guys.
another thing I was going to mention to you about. You handled that really good. And that's where, like, and when you saw this hard line, that it was just going to be not any way to get around it, you didn't just roll on and agree with what he said. You said, okay, we can agree to disagree on that, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be somewhat hospitable to the guy across the aisle. So.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that because I'm always, so for people who aren't aware of what Cody and I are talking about. So I'm a big fan of Dr. Robert Lustig. He wrote a bunch of really good books about the truth about the sugar industry and how fat's been demonized and all this stuff. And he's really intelligent in regards to the history of how we got here, how we got, why and how we got sold, the way we eat today, that which is so toxic to us, and why we're getting sicker. And and the other thing, like the really interesting thing is like him talking about like the Flexner report and understanding how homeopathic medicines got demonized, and like he knows the history of all this stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like at the very end, and I only had him on for an hour, and it was like at the very end of the episode is when all of a sudden I don't even know how it got brought up, but the COVID vaccine gets brought up, and I don't even know what triggered it. But then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, this dude is all for this vaccine. And I'm like, on my show, I'm like, I haven't been on that team, and I have to be honest here. And the thing is with me is like, it's always this balancing act, because in a way it's like, okay, it's the very end of the show. It could spark a debate that needs way more time than the last couple minutes of this episode. It also could piss them off after having a 1 hour pleasant conversation. It could piss them off and really end the show on a sour note, when 99% of the things that we talked about we agree on and we're on the same page. And I think it's good information. It's not just it's not just somebody who I think is just a good author. Like I think he's done a lot of good work in regards to just how the food industry has force fed us this bad science, and all for their own reasons, and a lot of people are fat and in pain and sick because of this bad science. And so I don't want to dismiss everything he did, but I have to be honest, and I have to at least say something. I always feel the need of have to say something. And I've done it. Like I had Scott Horton on during the lockdown, who is obviously, you guys know, from antiwar.com and the Scott Horton Show, big time libertarian, and one of the smartest people when it comes down to geopolitics. I mean, Scott Horton, if you guys want to learn about geopolitics, I mean, you listen to Scott Horton, he's the man. But I had him on during the lockdown. At the time, I was getting a lot of people say, you're only having people on that you agree with. You're only having people. I'm like, okay, I'm like, let me look around people that I'm friends with in the podcast community who I disagree with. And I'm okay with having my ideas challenged, because I'm not married to any idea. If I can't defend it, or somebody says something that makes more sense than what I'm saying, then I'd rather find the answer than being, sticking to my guns and being wrong, So I had Scott Horton on, and me and him disagreed on a lot of this stuff. And we had a very pleasant, probably 1 hour disagreement on all the COVID stuff. And I had tons of positive feedback, because at the time, this was like at the height of lockdown, nobody could find somebody where they could openly talk about it without it turning into an argument or a fight. And but so I think that's important. It's important for people to see that it can happen. You aren't gonna change everybody's mind, and you can also understand that, like, okay, we can disagree on this one thing, but if you have work that is valuable, if you have research that's valuable, books that are valuable, whatever it may be, information that's valuable, then just because we disagree on this one thing, it would be a shame for me to demonize everything you do and all the other valuable work. So
but the thing that was really it was just so weird with Lustig, because it was, big pharma and corporations led us down this terrible road. It was all about money making. And then there was a complete flip. That would be like somebody saying the war in Afghanistan is horrible. We shouldn't be meddling in there. but the war in Iraq is all right. You know what I mean? It was just such a flip. I've never seen that happen before in the medical field, where one section of the medical field with pharma is so crooked, but then this other division is actually so trustworthy. It was just mind blowing.
And
There's new people now. They've changed, right? Like the same, like the good people at NASA, like they've changed.
But Cody, the thing
Not the
is,
same people.
I went on a long rant telling that story, but the reason I brought it up was actually because of the Dr. Mercola thing you said. Because what's interesting to me, right, that Dr. Lustig was going around promoting his new book. He came on my show. He was also on Dr. Mercola's show. And I knew where Dr. Mercola stood on all this. Like Dr. Mercola and I've never had him on the show, but if I had him on, we would agree on everything. Like we're on the same page on just about everything. So, and then I went back and listened to his Lustig interview, and I'm curious. I'm like, I wonder if Mercola ever pushes back, or if COVID ever gets brought up, or they only talk about his book. And I went back and listened to it, and I'm like, damn, man, like Mercola's, like, I wish somebody like Mercola, who's a doctor, not like somebody like me, because I'm arguing with a doctor about this stuff. It was funny. I had like a friend of mine. He's like, oh, you and a doctor really went at it. I'm like, no, we didn't. I'm like, and he's like, no, you didn't. But he's like, I give you a lot of props that he's like, you're willing to just push back on topics that he's the one who should be the expert on, not you. You know, I'm like, it's information. We all have access to it, you know, and you know, if he can be wrong just because he has a PhD doesn't mean he can't be wrong. You know, if I might not know shit about fixing cars, but if a mechanic's fixing my car and I could tell he's doing something wrong, I mean, I can say, hey, like, I think you're doing that incorrectly. It doesn't mean I know how to fix the car better than him. It just means that, you know, he made a mistake and I just happen to observe it and find it. But yeah, so now it makes me think that the reason why when he had Dr. Lustig on, it was on purpose. It wasn't just coincidental that the COVID thing wasn't brought up. Maybe it was on purpose, like you said, Cody. Maybe he's kind of stepping back from talking about it and didn't want to argue with Dr. Lustig on there. Mercola was also on Jordan Peterson's daughter's show recently.
Michaela.
Yeah,
and I think one of the issues with the that I took up with the Lustig podcast was his like rejection of what physicians are seeing at the face-to-face level. And I don't think Lustig is probably, I don't know what he's doing right now, but it seems like he's gone from that microscopic level to the human level, and then now he's gone up to the bureaucratic level, like he's trying to change it. But I don't think you can really change those things without treating people, because you had said that these doctors were actually finding success in their own clinics of helping people. And then he's like, no, we have to have a clinical trial. And it's like, well, people don't live in clinical trials. That's the flaw with the clinical trial, is it's controlled. You have to reel back out to involving yourself with real people to see how your study and the results of it, how people can adapt to it. And I think that's one of the problems with somebody like that made so much sense to me, talking about Lustig. And then all of a sudden, he didn't make sense after a while. And I think that's that reeling back from actually interacting with people at an individual level.
Can I say something about misinformation here? Because I've heard a lot of people talking about all the animals died in the early vaccine studies with these new vaccines. And I looked up that shit, and it turns out that it's MVA, Modified Vaccina Ankara. That is the vaccine they tried when the animals died. So it's not the mRNA. And when I was looking at that, it seems like the Modified Vaccina Ankara is the vaccines that are not using the mRNA. So, like, I think AstraZeneca and J&J is using that one. So I'm not sure
debate about that.
how the doctors that are credible saying that the mRNA killed the animals when it's something else. It's a weird thing. So I'm very confused at the moment.
Yeah, because one thing people keep saying, and I think I've said it, where they, in the past, when they've done animal trials with these type of vaccines, that some of the animals have died. Now I'm hearing that. Is that what you're saying, Ronnie? That now you're hearing that's not necessarily true?
Yeah. I found the actual study. I looked at it. I read the paper. It's not the mRNA they tried. It's something called MVA, and that is used.
It's a different type of vaccine, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and we are using that also now. So I'm not sure.
I don't
Now-
even think
now
we
I
need to
think
get
I've-
into that. I don't even think we need to get into like that level of detail at this point. Like like you were saying earlier, Ricky, like if you can't see this by now, there's
Yeah,
like
I
there's
know
the
the
just
bit.
a
I know.
very I know what you're saying, like in terms of getting the information right is definitely important. I'm not gonna discount that.
That's what I was.
Because I'm very into the details, because one
Yeah.
friend told me the details don't matter,
They do, yeah, they definitely
and
do.
they fucking do.
Yeah.
So that was
So
the
when
one.
we talk about that issue, we should be very, very specific in which vaccine and what type of whatever it's called, what type of
Vaccine actually led to the
yeah.
yeah. Well,
So
I
we're not.
think that is important because you guys know just as well as I do. You could say 1,000 things that are accurate and right. If somebody who's trying to disagree with you finds one mistake in what you say, or one statistic that's wrong, or one thing that you say that's wrong, everything you say is just becomes uncredible.
They
So,
do
like,
the aha, gotcha.
Yeah. Yep. And that could be one, right? That could be we could all keep regurgitating that statement that, like, oh, past animal trials. You know what sucks too, man? Back in the day, you used to be able to go on Google and just be like, let me look this up right now. But you can't anymore because Google will just force feed me some bullshit. So it actually takes actual research and some actual time investment into finding the truth about anything. Because if not, Snopes is going to come up and say, no, that's not true, and whatever. So and they always fact check things and then call it false for the most ridiculous reasons. It's like it's if you actually take the time to read what they call false and why, it's always for something that's not even relevant. It's like, the animals or the mice died, right? And they're like, oh, this fact is wrong because they were rats, they're not mice. And I'm like, oh, okay, you got me. And I'm like, no, you didn't get me, you idiot. Like it's so silly. But this is something that maybe we should look into, just because I think even myself, I probably have said it on the show before, and if it's not accurate, but they either way, they got to skip the animal trials now anyway. So even if there is some issues with it, I think I've heard somebody, and again, I'll look this up and try to find the information, but I heard somebody talk about this, and I don't know if it was a No Agenda show or maybe it was the High Wire, but they talked about this, and they said one of the things that they're calling misinformation or disinformation is the type of animals, that they use the wrong type of animals, and they knew they would have negative effects if they used the other animals, something like that. So there's some fuckery. Oh, kids on headphones, can't swear. There's some messing around with stuff. So it's it's something that we should look into and dig deeper, because of the fact, like you said, you just would hate to have somebody repeat it and then somebody say, oh, see, you're lying about that, you're probably lying about all this. But
So I don't really see anybody. One of the arguments, like if it comes up between me and somebody else personally, one of the things I've been doing is, I guess it's kind of a misdirection thing, but not too many people are talking about the innate immune system when they start talking about antibodies. If you look into how these antibodies are created, the receptor sites on the antibodies, which is actually a cell, the protein receptor site is what they diagnose as the antibody. The ends of those the antibodies are all the same, but at the end of the antibody, there's coding, and there's a differentiation in the coding that your body produces for different viruses to link up to the antigen, the epitope area. And the variation on the end that is coded is in the range of 10 billion. So instead of me arguing what vaccine is better, because I think that's where I think we get into once you get drug into the argument, I think you kind of lost it already. Whereas if you talk about the innate immune system, the SARS-1, 17 years later, they go back and test those people. And if you're still a healthy human being, 17 years later, you still have immunity to the SARS-1. Whereas, like I said, 10 billion variation, and that's God's work, creator's work, whatever you want to call it. But you are never going to get that with any vaccine. Doesn't matter how many animals died, how many got cured. I just don't think you can trump what we have naturally. And that's been my biggest disappointment from the beginning, because
I linked the study here about the modified vaccine virus Ankara based. And I think where it says people are talking about the ferrets dying. So it's not the same thing. I don't know how everybody got this fucking wrong, because I'm not here for, I'm just looking for the truth, and this is disturbing that so many people I listen to got this wrong.
So you're saying the ferrets did die, or is
but it's another technique. It's not the mRNA.
It's a different technology, a different type of vaccine.
Yeah, and some vaccine companies are using this technology, but it's not Pfizer and Moderna. It's the other ones.
So maybe that's what they're saying. Maybe that's why they're saying it's wrong, or they fact checked it, because they're like, okay, so you said it's the same technology that which ones are using?
I think it's Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and the other guys that not Pfizer and Moderna. All the other guys are using this one.
Yeah,
I think. I'm
which
not a
makes sense.
scientist, so I have tried to look through stuff and reading for hours, so it's a bit confusing. But I think it's. And I think that's maybe why they are pushing Moderna and Pfizer, because they know shit might go sideways if we are taking the other ones.
Yeah,
I know the. Sorry, bud. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I had that Joel Hirschhorn on, who wrote that book, Pandemic Blunder, not too long ago. And he was saying that like over 4,000 people have died from the vaccine so far. And that's more than any of the other vaccines combined prior deaths. That was one of the statistics that he pulled out.
Yeah, Joel's awesome. Yeah, he's
and then finally your show gets taken off of YouTube, Ricky.
I still thought
I know people are dying, but we
YouTube.
should be clear about this issue at least.
It boggles my mind that the Mickey Willis episode is still on YouTube. I remember uploading it. I'm like, goodbye, YouTube, and it's like, it's still up there. And then they take down Hercules. I mean, which is hilarious. It's just Kevin Sorbo, which I thought was pretty, he's a Christian, he kind of shared things that revolved around his views or whatever. And but yeah, it's Joel Hirschhorn, Dr. Joel Hirschhorn, his wow, that's a hard name to say. It's it's a very good book, because all the evidence of other treatments that were having success, and all the other doctors that were saying like, hey, we're having luck with this, we're seeing success with this. I mean, so many doctors are like, every person we treated like this is fine, everybody we treated was fine. And it's like, that information was being suppressed from the public. Why? Like, if we really cared about helping people, so it was just so obvious that they and again, and I think that what some people missed, and it was really important, was that the reason why they had to demonize all treatments was because you couldn't fast track a vaccine if you had a alternative treatment. If you had any treatment that might work, you couldn't get authorization for this emergency authorization vaccine. So to me, it's like, it was quite obvious that that's why things like hydroxychloroquine, and I think we're all on the same page, like plant medicines, food, exercise, that's the best way of keeping your body strong. So when I was saying things about hydroxychloroquine and other treatments, it wasn't because I'm pro pharma. I'm like, stay away from all of it. But it was so obvious that they were demonizing a generic cheap drug that's been used forever. And all of a sudden it's like too unsafe to use. And then when Trump came out and said that he was taking it, I'm just like, it's pretty ballsy. I'll give them credit. Like, that's pretty ballsy. Just come out and be like, hey, I know you guys have all been acting like I'm a crazy person for even suggesting we have some success with it. How about this? I'm on it, motherfuckers. Like, and then I was telling friends of mine, I'm like, you do realize like there's no way that drug could be unsafe if they're giving it to the president. I mean, think about what that would do to your career if you got the president sick because you're the doctor that wrote that prescription. I'm like, the doctors he's dealing with, I mean, anything they're giving to him, they're without a doubt they want the president alive on their watch. They don't, so it's kind of, and it's a generic drug that's been around forever. I talked to many doctors and they all said the same thing. It was demonized for those purposes. So it's it again, it just goes back to the same thing. It was just so obvious that it was about the vaccine. Even now, like, it's like, which one did you get? Which one did you get? Oh, I got this one. I got that one. And then you're also getting all the premature, all the yeah. I mean, people are high-fiving all the premature, like, oh, but I want to travel. I'm like, but they haven't made it mandatory yet. So you're okay with getting an experimental vaccine for something that might or may not happen. Like, why can't you just get tested? Like, I don't give a fuck. I'll test. You could test me 100 times a day. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm not putting that vaccine in me. If I want to travel with my family, if all we have to do is show, how would they force you in saying like, no, a negative test is not good enough. We need to vaccinate. Like, to me, there's no way you're going to vaccinate everybody. And this is one of the reasons why, and this is just a theory, but one of the reasons why I think places like Massachusetts, which have been super strict, are now opening up so drastically. They're one of the highest vaccinated populations. I think they know that there's just about a percentage of the population you're just never going to vaccinate. There's going to be a percentage they're just not your clientele. They're not your customers. They're just a percentage of the population that will never give in and are never going to vaccinate. And I think they're so close to that number that just like, I think we got them all. It's almost like, I think we got them all. I think we can start opening shit up. Yeah, go ahead.
The travel restriction thing was really confusing because it had come out that if you do get the vaccine, it doesn't stop transmission. So it's like, if person A and if me, I decided not to get it and my friend got it and he gets a sticker, if we both get exposed to the virus, I'm homesick at bed. I'm not traveling. And then the person who did get the vaccine goes somewhere else and moves the virus somewhere else. So it didn't make any sense at all to me.
Well, that's the thing that people keep saying. They're like, oh, I'm getting the vaccine because I just want things to get back normal. I'm getting a vaccine because I just don't want to wear a mask. I'm like, well, you think you're wearing a mask so you don't get other people, so you don't spread it and you don't get other people sick. But the vaccine makers themselves, well, this is the thing that boggles my mind, is that the vaccine makers don't even need to push propaganda and lie to us. They've been pretty honest about like, hey, it doesn't stop you from getting it. It doesn't stop you from spreading it. I'm like, it's everybody else that's lying to us. I'm like, you guys are hyping up the product more than people who are making the product. You're lying about the product more and deceiving us more than the people who are actually making the product. You guys are going around it's almost like after September 11th when they kept talking about like, okay, let's talk about September 11th and then let's talk about Iraq. Let's talk about September 11th and talk about Iraq. So, and then it's always in the same conversation. So, and then when we say we need to invade Iraq, everybody's just like, yeah, because of September 11th. And nobody asks like, wait, is there any evidence that they're even linked to September 11th? And so that's exactly what they're doing with the vaccine. They're like, let's talk about the vaccine and then let's talk about getting back normal. Let's talk
it's called false endpoints. That's what they did with the whole cholesterol thing. I mean, nobody's ever died of high cholesterol, but they somehow I think actually Gary Lustig said it. He gave an ABC equation when you interviewed him, and that's what they did with cholesterol. Died of a heart attack. They had high cholesterol, so high cholesterol equals death. And it's
but you know what? Now, I remember I don't know if it was somebody who said on my show or I heard on another show, but I've heard it numerous of times that the majority of people who die of heart attacks now have average cholesterol. So they're like
average to low cholesterol, 50% of that, because they did the same thing with the studies for the vaccines that they did with the Lipitor. So as soon as they came out with that first vaccine study, I'm like, oh, they did the same things. They just messed up the actual risk with the relative risk. They waited till the amount of people got it, and then they pull those people out and they do their equation with that. When actually, I think the study I saw in the New England Medical Journal was 95% efficient when it was actually 0.72. because you have to flip the equation. It's like, well, don't do it with people who got it. Do a comparison of the people who didn't get it. And then you get like 99.7 or 99.25 compared to 99.7. So yeah, it's the way they flip the numbers in these studies.
But that's like, this goes back to the whole like the science is settled thing, right? Like, so they thought there's a link between cholesterol and heart attacks. Now the average like person who has a heart attack, or the majority of people who have heart attacks have average to low cholesterol, and we're like, we shouldn't reevaluate this. Like, no,
Yeah.
the science is settled. We've already figured it out. I know there's new evidence that tells us other things, but just ignore that stuff. We've already figured it out. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, we know this. It's like that just
they've tested people. They keep testing people in their 80s and 90s, and there's an absolute correlation with higher LDL levels. So it's like, well, what about that? But nobody ever hears about that. So
about the science, so I linked the Lancet study here, and they're going through the efficiency. Like Pfizer says, they are 95% efficient, but they're going through here and looking at the numbers. How likely are you to get exposed to COVID-19 after vaccination? And they are saying, I think Pfizer is 8% effective or something. And they are talking about, you should read this, guys, because I can't. I'm not so good at English, so I can explain everything. I take this and translate it to my language. But it's a really big study that everybody should know about. Like you're talking about, the vaccines don't fucking do shit. They are made to mild to moderate COVID-19 infections, to prevent that. They're not to prevent the severe cases, and they're not going to help you
in
so you're
transmission.
not so, and this is Lancet. I know they fucked up the hydroxychloroquine, but they retracted that, so they have some credibility.
But I mean, can't you just essentially do the same thing with, taking preventative measures, like, taking your vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and quercetin, taking all of these things. They do the exact same thing as that vaccine's supposed to be doing, but without all of the, worry of adverse effects and
For sure. And they are the is it headline COVID vaccine efficiency and effectiveness, the elephant not in the room. So they are fucking shooting down the vaccines in the whole story. So you should read it and put it out on your podcasts. It's
You should download it because it might not be up there for much longer.
good point.
yeah, do that too.
What's up, Zach? Long time no see.
Yeah, missed the last show, joined this one late, but I've still been watching and keeping in the news.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
But have you guys heard any of that FEMA camp, how they're giving $9,000 for people who have loved ones who died of COVID deaths? They're giving $9,000 for funeral expenses. Now it's like, okay, that seems like a nice thing. But where it really gets strange is how if you have a loved one who died early to mid 2020, before we had a lot of information on COVID, you can revise a death certificate and get the $9,000 because we didn't know too much yet. Like, besides the 2017 video of Fauci saying that there's going to be a virus that's going, go out.
Surprise outbreak.
Yeah,
during the Trump administration.
During the
Event 201, but they were completely off guard. Like, all the, Event 201 that happened in 2019, but no, this was a huge surprise. But that stuff like that, I mean, that all gives incentive to lie. The
Ohio lottery. They have a lottery in Ohio now, where if you get your vaccine by a certain date, you bring in your proof, and there's going to be a lottery. And 5 people are going to be picked to get $1 million each.
That should be a crime. I mean, people are going to end up making health decisions based on
a lottery.
Free
Yeah.
French fries.
Not based on actual milk.
Free French fries. Burgers. Beers. Did you see the jabs for joints in DC they were doing? That was the campaign. Jabs for joints, or joints for jabs, rather. That's what it was. Suck, bring them in with the joints. Got to have that first, right? It's just mind control. Joints for jabs. Joints for jabs.
But you know what's
Yeah,
funny?
man.
People who are pro marijuana, like, they should know the history of marijuana has been full of propaganda. Like, the government's been telling you that it is the equivalent of heroin forever, and now they're like, yeah, now that we can tax it, we'll open, you can get it around every corner now. I mean, Massachusetts are fucking everywhere. I mean, you can get,
Yeah.
I mean, there's, and Andy, like, they're everywhere. So it's like, and this is the same thing that now we can buy it everywhere in Massachusetts. But this is the same thing that for years when I was growing, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm 36. When I was growing up, I mean, you had dear officers, you had all these people that would tell you like how horrendous it is and how bad it is and how it's a drug and this and that. And then it's like, now let's go and grab a drink. It's like,
Dude, I love the Just Say No, the DARE campaign. Like, thinking about it, like with Ronald Reagan and his drug running CIA in the White House, and his stupid wife is over there saying, just say no, kids. Drugs are the number one. That was the public enemy number one, wasn't it? Drugs. It was like, just say no. Unbelievable. Like that little kid said with the masks, right? He's like, yeah, I asked my mom, is there a word for that? She said, yeah. And it's a hypocrite.
There's
Well,
three
his-
things that were correlated in that too, though. I mean, you had the CIA flooding the inner cities with crack cocaine,
Right.
and then you
Steve.
also had the privatization of prisons, which they started building all of these prisons after that, and then you had the '94 crime bill, which doubled the sentences and took the judging away from the judges with all those enhancements. So that was the mechanism that filled these prisons up. And then you had cops come out and close after that, which I don't know how old you got, I don't know if you've watched that before, but I mean, there was a point in time when I would flip through the TV and I couldn't go through it without finding an episode of Cops playing somewhere. And so that was the mechanism by which they further, let the public know that, okay, well, look at these people. Look at, if you watch Cops, I mean, what do they have in common? A bunch of dumb criminals doing dumb stuff and them catching them doing it, right? So that's shaping the opinion that, oh, well, these guys are stupid. They belong there. And then Lockup came right after that and showed you how animalistic these folks are, that, if you think about it now, oh, they deserve to be there. Look at those animals. And so they all play in together in concert with each other to shape public perception.
And the other mechanism you have to have is by telling children they can't have something, telling young people they can't have something. If you tell them you got to say no to drugs, what do young people do? You can't tell me, I mean, that's prohibition, right? You can't drink alcohol. What did people do? They drank more than ever.
And apparently now we're not going to be able to have menthol cigarettes or sweets.
Massachusetts already doesn't have menthol cigarettes, so Charlie Baker is a real progressive there in Massachusetts. Can't buy menthol cigarettes in Massachusetts. It's like,
Can I derail this once more time? Because I've been looking into stuff, and I have a new theory about how the COVID-19 started. If you look at what strains we have the South African, the England one, the China one. They're not talking about the USA one, but all those 4 countries had one common thing. They are doing gain of function research. So I think they made gain of function COVIDs and released them in South Africa, in England, and USA and China at the same time. That's my new theory. To be clear, I have also seen that Japan, Sweden, and what's the foot with Rome? What's that? Italy. Italy, yeah. They also and Switzerland have gain of function research.
The boot that's on
Italy
your face.
Yeah.
What's that Mussolini boot?
Can't breathe.
Yeah, but it's I think it's fun to see they're talking about the different strains, and I have confirmed that South Africa and England and China and USA are good doing gain of functions on COVID specifically. I don't know how about Italy, Sweden, and Switzerland, and Japan, but
But you know what's crazy is all the stuff we're talking about now, like from like the Wuhan lab dealing with gain of function research, even it coming from Wuhan, all the things that like the suppression of vitamin C and vitamin D and zinc and all this stuff, like all this stuff was so dangerous to say a year ago. Like if you
Why
brought
is it all coming to head now?
what's that?
Why is it all coming to the forefront now?
I almost feel like they've gotten what they wanted. Like they've gotten everybody vaccinated. They've gotten everybody. We kept talking about Hotep Jesus said this on my show, and he says it on a bunch of interviews, and it's so true. He's like, if I give you 50 feet of chain, are you free? If I give you 100 feet of chain, are you free? That's what's going on. Like they've already brainwashed us into basically being excited about getting back things that they should never took from us in the first place, our freedoms and our rights and our ability to be with our communities and friends and all this stuff. And so it's almost like they've already kind of won. And I even know a lot of people who are right wingers before the vaccine was even available, just being like, yeah, Trump is right. Like we got to open up the country and all this stuff. And there's all this big pharma agenda and all this stuff. And then they're like, yeah, I got the vaccine. I gave in. I got it. I just want things to open up. And I'm just like, holy crap, like a year of pushing this propaganda because even before the vaccine was available, before they even had a vaccine, you had people say like, oh, things will get back to normal once they get the vaccine. Once we have the vaccine, once they come up with the vaccine, things will get back to normal. It's like you're already planting that seed that like that's the path to freedom. That's the path, and they still do it. With the you don't have to wear a mask if you get a vaccine. There's no conversations about antibodies. Like Cody was saying, there's no better immunity to things than natural immunity. Your body makes the best medicines. Even if you believe in vaccine theory and the technology in vaccines, I mean that's kind of more or less what you're doing. You're triggering your natural immunity. You're basically saying like we don't have.
Well, have y'all heard that news story about how the Red Cross doesn't want anybody donating blood that has already been vaccinated to people in the hospital with COVID because it will destroy their antibodies?
Really?
Yeah, I did see that they're not accepting blood from anyone that's been vaccinated, but
Yeah.
I also saw some stuff where they were in certain countries, so it kind of depends where you are. But hey, I just want to say, Ricky, I got to take off. I got to go pick up this Wicked Mouse. Remember the Mickey Mouse, the birthday cake? I got to go get that before I get my balls, my ass chewed out from my girlfriend. She just texted me. She's like, "Don't be late to the party." I'm supposed to bring the cake, so I'm kind of the go man right now. It's an $80 cake, bro. I was like, and I told her, my girlfriend, she's from El Salvador. I'm like, see, I said Wicked Mouse, $80, $80 for a cake, and so they can brainwash my girlfriend's little niece and nephews. Like, fuck. But yeah, I just wanted to say I'm really grateful to be here, man. I had fun. I'd love to talk with you more, Ricky, maybe about Boston. I think we'd have a lot in common. I had a lot of fun. I'm fired up. I'm passionate. I'll just say one thing before I go about the gain of research stuff. I'm not sure. I haven't gone down that rabbit hole necessarily, but I showed you the book, The Contagion Myth, earlier, where I'm like questioning germ theory. And I don't think they need a gain of function research when they have people lining up for these toxic injections. Like, I don't think they need to release anything. Like the mind controls worked so well. There are a lot of people, Ricky, you did say everybody's getting vaccinated. There's a big portion of people that are not. We're just not really hearing about it. I know there's a lot of people in our own lives. My whole family got it, dude. My parents, my grandmother who's in the hospital, she got a flu vaccine back in November and then got the Novid vaccine in March, and now she's in the hospital. I mean, she wasn't healthy beforehand, so I can't say it was that. But do you think those doctors or anyone that saw my grandmother would like know how they work synergistically together? Do you think anyone evaluated that? Of course not. But yeah, I don't think they need gain of function research because they've done it with words. CIA Director Bill Casey said what? we'll know our disinformation campaign is complete when everything the American public believes is false. That's pretty much what I think we're living through right now, because you can lead the fool to knowledge, but you can't make them think. You know what I mean? People have to stop and think. The guy talked with at Walmart. He knew about Tuskegee. He doesn't trust the government. He doesn't trust the media, and he still got this thing. He still took the shot. And I was like, after I talked to him for a few minutes, I'm like, why'd you get it? I'm like, you know about all this stuff. He was a black man. He knew about Tuskegee. I said, why would you take a shot from the government? How could you just all of a sudden trust these people when there's you don't even have to get that controversial. Gulf of Tonkin, Iran-Contra, WMDs in Iraq. Like, you don't even have to say the dreaded 9/11, you know? Like, you don't even have to bring those things up. You could name 15 of them that are like provable, historical record. Even these people admit that they did this.
And the technology is invented by the Pentagon, the military, DARPA, the ones that have lied to us the most.
Yeah, now they got this little microchip, and they go on 60 Minutes and talk about it, and they're all wearing masks so they can keep up the fear porn. Like, we went to a health freedom rally here in Raleigh, North Carolina, Ricky, and I was like, I have some videos I'm about to post where we literally, it has the media, the journalist, and she's got her mask on, and the cameraman doesn't have a mask on, and it's like they're just playing this little game.
Oh, I remember that. There's quite a few videos of that, like where
I had it personally happen. We like chased these people away. Where like there's at these health freedom rallies, dude. It's all mothers like who have vaccine injured children typically, and they have the most gut wrenching stories, dude. It's like these people have been persecuted, they've been shamed, they've been ridiculed, and they're already dealing with guilt for making the wrong decision, you know, and they're dealing with. What's that?
What people don't realize. That's what people don't realize. What like so many of these people who are the most vocal and very outspoken in the vaccine movement or medical freedom movement, a lot of them have personal stories that they're dealing with one of the most horrific things ever, and that's the conclusion that possibly a decision you could have prevented harmed your child. And you look at Susie Olson, who's been on my show, a big medical freedom advocate. She's a vaccine injured child. Brian Festa from the CT Freedom Alliance and his co-founder Don, also vaccine injured children. Brian Hooker, who's the guy in the Vax documentary who gets the information from Dr. William Thompson, who was the CDC whistleblower. He had a vaccine injured child, and the list goes on and on and on, where it's just like, these are people who legitimately, have experiences. You can't tell a parent. Okay. And if any of you guys have kids or you've been around kids, like when every little thing they learn, it's like, oh, look, they're they know how to do this now, or they know how to say that now. Like, you're picking up on every little detail of their progression. To say that, like, you just didn't know that they had autism, like that there's no correlation, you just didn't notice that, like, your kid had these cognitive issues, and no, it's like, no, it actually started, he started his cognitive progression started decreasing after this, or he had some reaction. I think it could be related. It just boggles my mind. And you look at the VARS whole thing, like, when was it a Harvard medical
less than 1% is reported.
Yeah.
Harvard Pilgrim, less than 1%.
I imagine there's tons of vaccine children out there, but the parents just don't want to admit or even think that it could have been the vaccine. That.
Well, that's the thing that, like,
most likely don't know.
Del Bigtree said that, before, and I've repeated it numerous of times. Like, when they say that, like, oh, the parents, they're just looking for something to blame or whatever. It's like, that's a last resort in many cases, because the last thing you want to the last conclusion you want to come to is the fact that it could have been preventable. I mean, it's much more easier to, and I'm not, and I say that with all due respect, like, and I should, none of it's easy, but I think as a parent, if I was in that situation, it'd probably be easier to deal with if I knew that maybe it wasn't something that I could have prevented, that maybe it was something organically that happened, something at birth or just in its DNA, and I had no hand in it. It's a much harder pill to swallow if you come to the conclusion that, like, okay, I could have just said no to this vaccine for a disease that my kid might not even be exposed to it in a natural world, might never be an issue. And maybe if he is exposed to it, he has the strong immune system to deal with it on his own. I mean, look at the Hep shot, like what do kids need that shot so early in life? Like
24 hours, dude.
Actually,
24 hours in.
He's not going to be sharing. I mean, unless your kid's a partier, he's not going to be sharing needles and doing drugs or whatever. Like, so I don't. It's a sexually transmitted disease. Like, it's silly. I had a friend of mine who's very pro-vaccine, had all his kids vaccinated, fully vaccinated, and I'm like, explain that one. And then he's like, you're right, that one doesn't make sense. I'm like, so what does that tell you? If that one, you can come to the conclusion that you can't defend it. There's no defending that vaccine. So what does that tell you? That there's vaccines that they put in the schedule only for the purpose of profit and to put that. So shouldn't that make you rethink all the other ones? This whole polio, like everybody's always like, oh, we got rid of polio. Well, you know what? Our history books are also going to say we got rid of corona because of the vaccine. And we all know that's bullshit. So, you already have people saying like, oh, the numbers are going down. I mean, I think Dr. Lustig said it on my show, the numbers are going down because of the vaccine. And I'm just like, first of all, the case numbers are going down because of the less cycles of the PCR test. Second of all, numbers are going down even without the vaccine, and third of all, if the vaccine's doing it, then why the fuck is there so many people testing positive after getting the vaccine? It's like there's people getting it after the vaccine. So how can you contribute it to the vaccine?
Yeah, and hardly anybody wants to question the PCR test in the mainstream.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I saw an interview with Dr. Fauci where he actually got asked about it. And he actually said, I think there could be some false positives if we do more than 35 cycles. It's like you're saying that now because like you want the numbers to go down because you actually, so you can contribute it to the vaccine.
And now for vaccinated people, they're only going to do it to like 28, but for unvaccinated, they're still going to up it up to 40.
I have a question that I struggle to find out about the PCR test. What is it actually doing? Like if you're
amplifying the cell, like it's almost like you can find because Kerry Mullins, I've heard him explain Mullis, sorry.
I'm all over.
You should come on all our shows because we probably say so many things wrong that you can correct us on.
I mean, I played some videos of him on my channel and on my podcast, and he literally says that it's a manufacturing process where it's just he actually says, like, I'm paraphrasing, but he says you can find anything and anyone. Exactly. You amplify it enough times. So he said, hold on.
When would you use it?
What's that?
When would you use it? Like, if you're
I'm not sure specifically. He just says it's a process used to gather data and to sort of get more information. He never says that it's an actual diagnostic tool, and he actually goes on to even say,
"Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, but I'm not sure exactly.
When would you use it to find?
Well, one of the things that I had heard, and this was from a doctor, that they had said that it's for when somebody comes in the office, they're sick, they have certain symptoms, and that the doctor can dial it down to, okay, there's a possibility you could have A, B, or C. So then you run the PCR test so you can gather more information about whether it's one of those three. But the doctor's evaluation is supposed to happen first with the symptoms and the sickness.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's just a way of gathering information. Like you can use it. It doesn't really tell you anything specifically. It's more like, okay, here's some information that could be useful in whatever you're investigating or researching or whatever it may be. That's why, he says it's not a test because it's not.
You're shrinking down the window.
Yeah.
Of possibilities.
Yeah. And most of the
Andrew,
doctors you guys have had on is saying under 30, Sorry, Ricky.
I'll let you finish, Ronnie. I know Andy has to go pick up Mickey Mouse, and I wanted him to just plug
little wicked mouse.
A little wicked mouse. I wanted to plug his podcast before he goes. Before you go, I'll give you a chance to kind of plug your podcast and let people know where they can connect with you.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate you, Ricky. Like you're one of all you guys are my soul brothers. I know we're all deeply connected in ways that we could never imagine. That's what I found on those mushrooms and those walks in the woods, man. We're all deeply connected. I think we're here for a reason. It's love, it's connection, it's building a better world for Ricky, your kids, all your children, all our children. I'm an uncle now. So important that we put our differences aside, come together, and, just fucking take our power back once and for all. We have an opportunity before us where we could change the world for the better. We can take the right hand path. It's either could be oblivion or it could be, I'm not going to say utopia because the word utopia means nowhere. It means literally nowhere. It doesn't exist. So creating a better world, that's what I'm trying to do. And you can find me on YouTube, Odyssey, and there's a few videos on BitChute. It's just a pain in the ass to upload there. So pretty much YouTube and Odyssey at Go Within to Get Out. I have a backup channel, Go Within to Get Out Censored. I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm at like Go Within to Get Out on Twitter, and as well as Geoengineering Watch Massachusetts on Twitter, because I take a lot of videos and investigating the geoengineering issue, because that's a problem. But I really appreciate all you guys, Ricky. It was a lot of fun, and I'm going to leave you with this right here. This is about freedom and about manipulation. Stalin once ripped all the feathers off a live chicken as a lesson to his followers. He then set the chicken on the floor a short distance away. The chicken was bloodied and suffering immensely, yet when Stalin began to toss some bits of wheat towards the chicken, it followed him around. He said to his followers, "This is how easy it is to govern stupid people. They will follow you no matter how much pain you cause them, as long as you throw them a little worthless treat once in a while. Stay inside, shut your business down, do as you're told, get a vaccine. We'll take care of you. Help is on the way. Here's $600.
That's beautiful.
Yes,
I'm gonna leave you.
Amen.
I'm gonna leave you with that. I had a lot of fun today. I'm gonna try not to go get in trouble and enjoy.
Yeah, don't bring up. Yeah, I hopefully you got all these conversations out of your system, so when you're at the birthday party, you don't bring.
Well, most of them speak Spanish, so I can only communicate a little bit with some of them. So I'm okay in those communities because they just see my big smile, my sombrero, and they love the body language. So it works out.
Well, you're always smiling too, which I think is awesome, because I think we need to. It's good to not get so deep in these conversations where it ends up affecting our ability to still enjoy and appreciate the beautiful things in the world we still have. So
absolutely, man. I wish I could give you guys all a hug, but until next time, I'll see you later.
Thanks, Eddie. Hey, good rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Buenas noches. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches, amigo.
Yeah.
Mucho gusto. Later.
So if anyone can clarify the PCR issue for me. I know people are talking about if you have a positive test at 20 cycles, they are saying you're clearly sick. But at 30 or plus that, it's most likely false positive. So have you guys figured out what the fuck are they looking for, and how is that
at the higher thresholds, it can't really detect the difference between live or dead viruses.
Exactly.
Or fractionated.
Yeah.
So something that's already fallen apart. You can pick out a specific protein that's on it that you might have had something 2 months ago that's still floating around in your body. It can pick up the tiny pieces instead of the whole thing.
Yeah. So people, they're saying you could literally.
I know you. You guys are like the people I try to talk to, like parroting things, because. Sorry. I just want to know, like, how is it working? The multiplying, like, you take it one time, multiply, and multiply. Then you have millions of cells, I guess. But how is it? How do you know what it is? Do you have any clue? Have you guys looked into that? Because
I don't think it's multiplying. I think it's separating. I mean, the cycles are about separating different things in whatever they took out of you to find parts of something.
It's more like a magnification.
Yeah, Carrie Mullis called it an amplifier.
Yeah.
So it amplifies, which basically to amplify something, you actually have to separate it so you can recognize it.
So
yeah, but I know if you do 60, everyone is supposedly sick.
Well, because you can find, like these guys were saying, you could find a dead virus. You could find, so you could have just a dead virus that's in your system that's basically having zero effect on your health, and you have zero effect on you in regards to symptoms. You have no symptoms to reflect that virus, but it's just hanging around in your system. I mean, the best way, I mean, I try to kind of dumb it down, because that's the way I understand things the best, is when people dumb it down. So I try to do the same thing. Is like, see it as like a microscope, right? Like you're just amplifying something, right? And if you amplify it enough, you can find trace amounts of just about anything. And so that's why it's not a really good method to find out if somebody's sick, because the whole asymptomatic thing, like we're almost redefining what sick is. There's like a clever tweet that I retweeted. I remember like, I don't know, this past week, where somebody's like, I don't know anybody who's ever been asymptomatic strep throat or asymptomatic, you know, like this idea of like, what the fuck's like, if you don't have symptoms, for the most part, we didn't really consider you sick, you know, like now you can have zero. I mean, Christian.
That's the difference between SARS-2 and COVID, just like HIV and AIDS. If they pick up, I know Ronnie had said that, well, if they spin it so much, then you're sick. It's like, well, you're not sick. You could definitely have it at 20 cycles, but if you don't show the symptoms, you don't have COVID. Everybody keeps missing up SARS-2 to COVID, and they're not the same thing.
Well,
the test is to pick up.
The other one's a disease. Yeah.
Yeah, so through the test, you can pick up SARS-2, and people say, well, I tested positive for COVID. I'm like, do you have symptoms? And they're like, no. It's like, well, you didn't have COVID.
Yep.
You had SARS, you were introduced to SARS-2. Now your information system is updated to that.
Well, see,
be thankful.
The way they can manipulate the case and death numbers with this PCR test makes me wonder, why do you think they're really pushing this vaccine? You know, that's experimental DARPA technology. I mean, in my mind, if it was just all about profits or vaccine passports or division or control, I mean, they could have just pushed out like a revamped flu shot or even a saline solution with hardly any side effects, and then just manipulate the case numbers to make it appear that it's working.
Well, I think the reason, there's something about the technology, like for future uses. You know, I've heard some stuff about that, about like you know, getting out this technology and using it like to possibly cure cancer and all these other things. Like there's going to be all these other it's just gonna,
like, yeah, this is just the perfect excuse.
yeah.
They talked about that. I was visiting my parents last weekend, and the news came on and they were watching, and they had a like 10-minute thing about, now when we know how to make mRNA vaccines, they're going to use it to pretty much cure everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you can't have, I mean, they would have never been able to break apart society and our communication system without something new. You're not going to freak people out over the flu and get churches to not meet together and people not to meet and get people locked up in their homes over the flu. They needed something new.
Oh, I mean, I agree with that, but just with the vaccine specifically, I feel like they could have rolled out anything. And
yeah, they could have. Yeah, if it comes down to tracing and tracking, yeah, they could put that in their food or water supply. So
yeah, I mean, it just makes me think there's a lot more than meets the eye, and there's something a lot more nefarious when it comes.
It's funny, Zach, you say that, because I've thought about that a lot. I'm like, why specifically is the vaccine the thing that they keep just harping on and pushing so strongly on the public? Like, what is it like about the because like you said, there's plenty of other ways they could have made money or track people or whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm kind of like on the same boat where I'm like, I wonder if there's more to the story and it's going to unravel eventually, because it just seems like they're pushing real hard specifically on this vaccine. And so what is it about the vaccine? Because a lot of people are just like, well, it's not about the vaccine. It's about all the other stuff. It's about, you know, giving control to the government. You know, it's about, but I'm like, yeah, but they're emphasizing the vaccine a lot. So it's
I think it's because the school system is teaching people that vaccines are good, and when you're talking about the why are they, like the Council of 13 or whoever is running the world, they have not bought everyone, and most people that are working on the vaccine actually believes it's a good thing. So you can't like we think they can just do something, and no people is going to say, what the fuck is going on? They have to go through the system they have built. They have built a system of doctors and scientists that are misinformed and actually believe they're doing good stuff when they're killing people.
Well, I think that's in every field. I mean, you think about the guy who eventually has the breakthrough AI technology that could end up ending human civilization. Like, you think that guy like thought about his technology possibly ending civilization? So some people are just really focused on their work, right? They're not focused on the big picture. It's like, okay, I'm a scientist, I went to school for science. I get hired at a pharmaceutical company. Oh, your intellect is really useful in this department on vaccines. Now I'm working on vaccines and I'm studying vaccines and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm not spending any time looking at stories about a CDC whistleblower or vaccine injured
We
children.
saw that with the atom bomb. How they did it. That's the fucking platform they're using right now. They're taking people that are not informed to make stuff, and then you're asking, when you talk to the normal people, why is no one saying something? Because they fucking don't know. They think they're doing the new generation stuff because they're misinformed,
If you do,
and
if
they
you,
don't know what the other army is doing. It's
yeah, they
compromised like that.
they decompartmentalize it. If you want a group of people as a system to do something that you might think is evil, it's like you can get people to do that. You just have to decompartmentalize it so one group doesn't know what the other one's doing and doesn't realize what the whole system is doing.
It's a little bit of everything.
Well, I
If you really think about it, because even the camps of doctors that you would think that, okay, well, why isn't all the doctors on board with the same thing? But you have the independent ones that don't work for the hospitals. The hospitals are bureaucracies basically, and so whatever Fauci and the NIH says, or whatever that one is, that goes down to every hospital, and every hospital has treatment protocols for things. And so you've got these doctors that are coming out of college and they're saddled with $250,000-$300,000 worth of debt. They've got to pay these bills off. These hospitals, if they start going against these treatment protocols, some of them have, but I mean, they see what happens. You end up losing your job, and now that's where you're going to get hired at now. And so it's just a whole thing of coercion. Even if you wanted to say something, you're not going to.
Yeah, it's a big system.
I mean, to me, a
And they
lot
have made it.
beyond to traditional medicine, just the fact that, I mean, it was such a military project. I mean, I remember reading some of Whitney's Webb work about it and how it really looked like a military operation, and the FDA wasn't even allowed to sit at the meetings. I mean, when have we ever heard the military get involved with our medicine and give the patent to something to a drug company? I mean, to me, I feel like the military is one of the least trusted organizations.
Yeah, for sure.
But the thing is, it's like with every story, 9/11, JFK, Oklahoma City bombing, just about everything, there's whistleblowers and those so people are like, why didn't somebody say something? Why isn't there a cure for cancer? Why isn't there, like, if there's a cure for cancer, we would know. I'm like, well, there are people out there. There's, I've had Dr. Brzezinski on my show, years ago, who had success curing people of cancer with anti-neoplastones. And there's a great documentary on him called Cancer, the Business, or Brzezinski, the Business of Cancer, something like that. Hopefully you could still find it somewhere. It used to be on Amazon Prime. I don't know, a bunch of places. You can't find it anywhere now. But he, people like him exist. And the last filmmaker I just had on my show, Massimo, he had a documentary called Cancer Cures, and he documents all these different doctors throughout history that had success with curing cancer, and they all had different tragic endings to their story. And but these people existed, and then you go look them up, and you're like, oh shit, this is a person. Like, this person did have success. The story is real. And it's same thing with like the Oklahoma City bombing or whatever. It's like, oh, where's the whistleblowers? How come nobody spoke? And it's like, well, they did. Only the media is not reporting on those people, and in some cases, those people are just too afraid to talk. You see it now. I know people work at hospitals who have been giving me information, and they won't publicly talk about it. They're not even, they're not even political. They're not activists. They're not political. They're not people who are outspoken, but they see something's wrong in the workplace. Like, not like what they're telling you is going on isn't what's going on. And then it takes like a nurse, like Erin Marie, who came on my show, the New York hospital nurse whistleblower who was very outspoken and came out and said, hey, you know what, like the ventilators are killing people, all these other things are killing people, it wasn't COVID, you know. And but rarely will you find somebody who sees something wrong like that and will publicly, you know, and especially at the height of things, because right now it's almost like people are more free to talk about it because it's like past tense. But when you're in that moment, and there's so many true believers who really believed that if you didn't stay at home, the U.S. was going to look like China, with people dying in the streets and burning bodies because they didn't know where to put them. Like that's what we were sold, and like that's what made people afraid, because they thought that's what they were preventing. And you know, and you couldn't talk about things at that time because people were so emotionally worked up and people were so afraid. And now you can talk about it. But those people, but there were doctors. I mean, what was that little clinic, right? Was it a California clinic where a couple doctors talked and then start talking about COVID, and they got banned everywhere and they got in trouble? And like, it just doctor after doctor who would go against the grain was getting in trouble. And so these people existed. The problem is, unless you're really curious people like ourselves who are going to go down these rabbit holes, know some places where you can find some of these alternative content creators or researchers or thinkers, you're not going to run into it organically just living your life. You're not going to run into somebody who's going against the grain by just putting on the news, then going to work and putting on the radio. What are you going to get? You're going to get that mainstream narrative over and over again. And when that's all you're seeing, you're going to believe that has to be right, that has to be correct, that has to be the truth, because everything I see and hear says that mainstream narrative is like, everybody's on board with that mainstream narrative. You know, you don't realize there's a whole nother world of people who can see through the bullshit and have been questioning things and saying like, no, this isn't true, and here's my evidence, or here's my perspective. I mean, the thing about science too, it's like there should be nothing wrong with somebody who studies science or has some background in science just going against the mainstream narrative. I'm like, regardless where you stand on this issue, I don't see how anybody could be against just somebody who's in science, understands science, just saying something, you know, against the mainstream narrative. And if they're suppressing those people, we should all be scared of that. Like, regardless of what political party you're on or what side you're on, like, we should all be afraid of saying like, we've decided that one person is going to decide truth for all of us. And in this case, it's Dr. Fauci. Like, he became the all-knowing person. Same thing with Bill Gates. You want to talk about another conspiracy theory that has become like now acceptable to talk about, like how Bill Gates is a piece of shit.
Yeah, that they done sacrifice him.
Yeah, they sacrificed. I mean, just not too long ago, Bill Gates and Cuomo could have ran for president and won. You know, it could have been a Cuomo Bill Gates card, and they could have won. And now, like, you know, they're like you said,
They're making Melinda to be like a victim.
That whole thing is curious. I'm like, I wonder if Melinda's like, this dude's going too far, I need a bail.
I don't know. I kind of think she's just as guilty.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, yeah, I should probably just equally.
She obviously knows.
Oh, she knows.
She's trying to save herself.
No, I don't think that it's. I think it might be that she's like, they're both power hungry, and now they're butting heads because it's like, you know, she wants to do stuff her way, he wants to do stuff, and then they just separate. And he probably, you know, cheats on her, I'm sure, and she, you know, who knows? I mean, he hung out with Epstein, and there's a lot of stuff now, you know, talking about you know, their relationship and all that stuff. And he obviously lied about, and Whitney Webb did a great job of kind of exposing the fact that he lied about the timeline on when he met Epstein and how long they knew each other and all this other stuff. So it's like, you know, it's wild. You know, it's a fucking wild world. One thing you were saying about also, you could be working on a program and not know what you're working on. I have a cousin who I don't see her often. She lives in Connecticut, but she was in the FBI and she's retired. And her husband, also in the FBI, retired. And I remember like one of the last family get-togethers when we're all together at the same place, I was like grilling him a little bit. I'm like, hey, do you know about this? You know about that? And then he's like, listen, I don't know anything. He's like, I don't, he's like, I'll be honest with you. He's like, when me and your cousin were dating, he's like, we had desks right next to each other. She had no idea what I was working on. I had no idea what she was working on. And she's like, ever. He's like, we never knew what we were working on. We didn't talk about it or whatever. I'm like, so it's just an example of how easy it is to kind of keep secrets, even in your own, room and department and organization.
Yeah, and I can myself is censoring myself because I am working on a meat factory, and I know stuff because I'm going through a school there, and they have told me some stuff that if I would go out in public and say that, they would bankrupt immediately. Like they're testing animals vaccine, how to sterilize them and stuff like that. And I know they're doing that, and they're trying to make it more human, I guess. And they are also tracking people. If you call to my company and says my food was bad, they're writing down your name. So if you call again, they know you have called multiple times, so they don't have to take you as seriously. And I could go out and say that to media, but if I do that, my company dies and I'm out of work. So I'm self on the big pictures, the big companies that I don't work for, I can call them out, but I can't call out my own because then I don't have work. So I think everybody does this, and that's why the world is so fucked up.
Well, I don't think everybody does do it. That's why when I had people on like Thomas Drake from NSA, or when I had what's his name, Michael Suzanne, he was from that Oil for Food whole UN story. You guys familiar with that? It was an amazing podcast I did with him some years ago. There was a what was it called? Backstabbing for Beginners. I highly recommend you guys checking out that movie. Great cast. It's a true story about the UN. It's linked with the Iraq War or whatever. But this guy, I mean, his life was on the line for being outspoken about the corruption that was going on. But it's called Backstab for Beginners. And I mean, when you hear stories like his, or you hear stories like Thomas Drake and how it ruined their lives, and all the like, you're putting your life on the line, you're putting your family's life on the line, you're doing all this stuff just to be honest and be truthful and be able to look in the mirror, and because you couldn't live with the fact that something's not right. Like, yeah, I mean, I just have such a soft spot for those type of people, because we all have that internal dilemma where just like, okay, I like to believe I would do the right thing, but if my life could be threatened, if my family's life could be threatened, if my career could be threatened, would I hesitate? We all have those inner thoughts. I mean, I think we all like to believe we would do it, and maybe we would, but I just maybe in some cases I don't think it'd be as easy as we think it would be, because of those things you'd be risking.
Yeah, and I don't know, for myself, I'm trying this year. I've started growing potatoes and some other stuff just to have if shit hits the fan. If I did go out to the media today and told the media what my company has said they're doing, I would get fired. I have zero income, and probably my family would help me so we wouldn't starve and die, but I would have to move in with my parents, and it's a shit way to live. So I think many people are in the same position as me. It's not that my company is so big that it's fucking everything they do has to do with the whole world. It's a small company in that way. There's like 1,000 employees, so
Well, hopefully your parents
it's big here, but
hopefully your parents don't listen to podcasts, because you said living with them would be a shit way to live.
yeah. Well,
Now
I
if you're ever
think they
struggling,
would agree,
You're doing the
because every
right
time
thing
I
can
go
be
there,
expensive.
And doing so many people, I mean, that's one of the positive things that have come out of all this. Things like Cody's doing and like you're doing, Ronnie, in regards to being like, you know what, let me support myself. Let me not be just need a grocery store for everything, or need a, you just live on your own and be, I shouldn't say like live like a caveman, but in a way, like, okay, if shit does hit the fan, like, would I be able to survive? Would I be okay? I mean, I say this all the time, like, if I was stuck on an island, I would want my parents with me, because like they would not live that different. They don't really watch TV. They make, they make wine, so you can at least, get drunk and get it and giggle the night away. And then you can, they have food, they know how to grow animals. I remember when I was a kid, and Cody, you probably know the answer to this, but there's a fruit plant, where you could take the stem off another tree, and then like tie it to another tree, and then you can have a different type of fruit grow
Yeah,
up.
it's called grafting. You can actually do that where you could have half the tree produce pears and the other half produce apples.
Yeah, like when my parents, and I forget what two fruits were on this tree. I looked at my parents and I thought they were geniuses. I'm like, wait, I thought they were dumb farmers my whole life, and then I'm like, how did I didn't know you could do this. I'm like, and it was like, yeah, you could, and they said it like it was no, and I'm like, and then it hit me. I'm like, holy crap. So many of us are intelligent in regards to like all these topics, but the most like common things that are important, like food and survival, topics that
They don't want us to learn that stuff.
no, it blew my mind. I'm like, how the hell did you know? How did I've never heard of this? I'm like, I thought it was like
How do you do that, by the way? I want to do that.
you could. Well, Cody could probably tell you, because he's probably done it.
Yeah, you actually take a branch off of one, and they actually have tools to do this. So you cut it in the right way, and then you put it on. Like if you had one tree that was growing up and it stemmed out this way, you could actually take this branch, cut it, and take a different type of an apple. Like this one would be a Macintosh, this one would be a golden or whatever. And then you wrap that. There's a wrapping you put on it, and eventually that branch will it'll morph into each other, kind of like a broken bone. And then that branch that's out the other side will grow the different type of apple.
Wow.
Okay, because I'm been thinking about growing apple trees, and now I could do that and do something else together. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, is there only specific trees or fruits that works with, or is that pretty?
I'm not sure. My only experience with it was with apple trees, and I know people do pear trees with the apple trees. Outside of that, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So if you have a apple tree, you could take the branch off a pear tree, tie it to the apple tree, like Cody said, you had to cut it a certain way, and then it heals like a bone. So basically it ends up morphing together, and then you have pears and apples on the same tree.
Yeah.
So I guess you if you have the apple tree, you take a branch and snap it and put a pear and tie it together, and it somehow starts to grow.
Yeah, the branch off another tree. Isn't it amazing? My parents don't even know how to use the internet, and we're on a Zoom call, and my parents would be looking at us right now trying to explain this. Like, wait, you guys all know how to use the internet, and you guys could barely understand and wrap your head around this. It's so interesting. Yeah, but isn't it crazy that like even simple things like that have been knowledge that we've known forever, like typical people don't really know anything about that. But like Zach said, they don't want you to, they don't want you to be self-sufficient and be able to kind of take care of yourself. They want you to be dependent on the government. And that's why like the whole, like you see that push for universal basic income and all that stuff. And I know Zach and I probably might disagree. I'm not against the idea of it. Like I like that if we could create a society where like, hey, we're going to contribute to take care of your needs and necessities, but we're also going to not make you sheeple. We're going to let you not worry about those things, so you can pursue some passion, some artistic passion or whatever, and not have to just force yourself to get this 9-to-5 job that you hate to survive. Like I wouldn't be against that, but obviously there's a greater agenda.
Oh no, I mean I agree. I mean at the end of the day, I'm not against hardly any ideology. I think the main thing is it comes down to whoever's running it, if they have a good moral compass or not. I mean, you know, like I feel like if they introduce a UBI here, it'll come with a bunch of conditions that they want you to meet, whether it's
Get
taking a
vaccinated.
experimental vaccine or all kinds of different things.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I don't think it's for moral reasons.
I'm more like if you have an ism, ideology, you probably are wrong.
Yeah, well,
Any ism, you are fucking wrong.
I'm a big believer of we should not plant our flag on any ism or ideology, like you said, like because and then once you do plant your flag, usually you stop questioning that ism, right? You stopped seeing the other side of the argument because you have to defend that ism and defend that team that you've joined. So but guys, thank you so much for being with me. I really appreciate this was a blast. It was awesome to meet some new faces too, like Cody and Andy. Andy was a riot. Anybody who shows up on the show, a white guy with a Celtics jersey wearing a sombrero, is a friend of mine. So that was awesome. And so yeah, thanks guys. I hopefully you guys enjoy this as much as I do. It really does feel like I hang out with just friends. That's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah, it's really good to talk to people that are informed, so you don't have to have the both arguments why you're wrong. And thank you guys, and have a nice evening.
And you know what? And it's not just being informed. It's the fact that it's just people who are willing to just have the conversations and share the ideas. You know what I mean? Like we were all kind of sharing like, oh, I heard this, I read, that's the power of conversation is being able to do that. We all, you guys might listen to a podcast that I don't listen to. I might listen to one that you guys don't listen to. So we're all kind of getting pieces of information from different sources, and then we can bring that together and be like, okay, I heard this. Does this make sense? What do you guys think? Oh, I hear, and that's the beautiful thing about
we're all willing to listen, not just push back or.
And I think that's how they brainwashed everybody so easily, was because you weren't letting people gather the way we were gathering and just have conversations. Because I think it would have been much harder if people were gathering in groups, and all it would take is one person, one of us in that group, we're in a social event, and one of us be like, hey, yeah, that doesn't make sense, right? And then somebody be like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And then somebody else says, yeah, you're right, that doesn't make a lot. And then it sparks that. But instead, it was much easier to keep everybody at home, and the only information and conversation they were having was with that mainstream media TV that was just force feeding you one narrative over and over again. And even I remember my wife one time, like she's like, but I don't get it. If everybody thinks this is a big deal, are you sure that it's like that it's just a bad flu? And I'm like, babe, who is everybody? Like, we haven't talked to anybody. All we're doing is watching the TV. I'm like, so you have this interpretation that everybody is convinced on what the TV is telling us. So now you're like, well, even though it doesn't make sense, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I should also be convinced because everybody else is saying it's true. Then it must be true, So the power of crowds, that just like everybody, everybody just following the herd. It's like, well, if everybody's running in that direction, must mean there must be a fire over there because everybody's running. I'm just going to run. I'm not going to question it. And that's kind of the same thing, like if you're in the woods and everybody's just running past you going in one direction, what are you going to do? You're going to follow them, even though you haven't really found anything to scare you, and that's the majority of us, where us, we might be like, well, you know what? Let's go see what everybody's running. We might be too curious for our own good. We might be like, let's go over and see why everybody's running.
I'm the guy outside my house when tornado warnings go off.
That's why I took the hunting license this year.
Yeah, that's another
start hunting, and maybe hunting some politics people.
Oh boy, now we just got kicked off YouTube. But thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. We are not hunting politics. We are here. I'm just kidding. But thanks again, and I'll keep you guys updated on the next one, and I'll keep doing these. I know I'm on Rockfin, but I really like the whole Patreon platform. I love doing these shows, and I don't know, how are all you guys on Rockfin, or have you guys checked it out? Like
for sure.
I'm still trying to get Sam.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get Sam to get me on there.
I got the premium.
Now that he's got a position there.
Yeah, he's Well, I mean, it is. I like the fact that they have some type of guidelines. You, Sean, you've been doing your show for a while. You have a lot of great guests on there. Like, obviously, I think your show should be on Rockfin, but I think, if somebody just starts the show and they're contacting Rockfin, that's why because I think it will water down a little bit. You shows like ours, we really spend a lot of time trying to get interesting guests and spark interesting conversations, and not every podcast is doing that. And so I think having some type of guidelines are important. Honestly, I'm a little confused too about what exactly they're looking for. It seems like a lot of it is like they like things that are being censored in other platforms. Like, that's their niche. Like, okay, are you talking about stuff that other platforms? Because if not, then you'll just go to those other platforms, right?
Well, I mean, I feel like, with the way they are right now, they can't be deemed as like a right-wing conspiracy site, because I noticed, I don't really watch a lot, but they do have like a lot of wrestling and sports-specific content. There might be a lot of people going there just for that.
Yeah, well, they also have Lee Camp, Abby Martin just joined them, Jimmy Dore. I mean, those are pretty popular left-wing people. So I think it's great that they don't really have a political. I mean, in a way, I have like this love-hate relationship with the idea of them not being, I guess, having a opinion politically, or having some ideology or some philosophy. Because in a way, I'm like, well, what the fuck do you guys stand for then? Like, what's your, like, what do you guys stand for? Are you backing us as content creators because you stand for the same thing we stand for? But in a way, it kind of works out, because they're like, okay, we're not left leaning, we're not right leaning. Like, if you're doing good content, if you're a good content creator, well, and you're saying something that people are connecting with, we're going to put you on our platform. And I think that's why it hasn't got demonized the same way like Parler did, or some of the other platforms where it was quite obvious.
They just won't ever get too big and, attract big names, and decide to turn its back on, you and Jason and all the other people that helped build it up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I when I had the CEO on my show, Martin, I remember telling him, I'm like, have you guys thought about being attacked or what? Because I mean, what they did to Parler, I mean,
I understand they're on Amazon servers.
Yep. And hopefully that they'll find a way to kind of disconnect from that, because they got you by the balls if you're on those servers. I mean, you can do your own website, have all your own shit, but if you're using their.
Well, have you talked to Ryan much about his new platform?
Yeah, is it up and running already?
Super U is up, yeah.
It's
Last American Vagabond is on there.
Phase.
It is, yeah. Because last time I talked to him, I was on. He interviewed me on for a Rockfin episode, and I know we talked about it, but it wasn't up and running yet. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, when one door closes, another one opens. The reason why Rockfin is getting so popular, like, we all wouldn't be on Rockfin if YouTube didn't suck so bad. Like, the reason why we're entertaining it is because like going to this platform is because they seem to let like you said, they're not censoring anybody. They're not only letting left-leaning or right-leaning people on. They're letting everybody on. They're not censoring anybody. Everybody who is having issues on YouTube are putting more controversial stuff on Rockfin, not having issues, and that's why Odyssey is getting more popular. That's why Rumble, Minds, all these alternatives float are becoming more popular. So I mean, I think it's a good thing. I don't know which one's going to break through. That's the thing. Like,
apparently, June 1st, YouTube is going to delete any channel that's not deemed commercially viable. So I guess anybody that's already demonetized might just lose their channel.
Sounds like that's going to be my going away party. But yeah, that's whatever. I mean, like I tell people, like, the majority of I get thousands of downloads, for each episode, and I get hundreds of views on an episode on YouTube. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, my download numbers are pretty good, all and it's obviously scattered from all over the world. And like, for a while, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm like, how can I get this many thousands of downloads, and my video of the same episode has like 300 views? I'm like,
I have been thinking about that. Who is owning the RSS feeds? Like, I'm using Podcast Addicts. Who is owning the feed?
Well, Podcast Addict, all they do is like, for example, my host website, or my host I don't know what the hell to call them. Podomatic is the company that I use to upload my episodes. They're the ones who create my RSS feed and then send that information to iTunes.
And who
Spotify.
is Podomatic?
They're
Have
actually
you?
yeah. So when I got with them, they were I don't know. I like the company. They seemed like they were for freedom of speech, and I knew some people who were on the platform that were talking about similar things, and they didn't have any issues. So I'm like, you know what, I'm cool with using them and see how it goes. And I'll tell you, since then, even when I got censored on iTunes for the Del Bigtree show and for I forget, or the Mickey Willis show, I contacted Podomatic. They were willing to go to bat for me and say like, hey, you know what, like let's try to figure out why these shows aren't appearing on iTunes. And they were kind of like my middleman with trying to figure out what was going on with iTunes. And I told them, I was honest with them, like, listen, I'll tell you what I think is going on. I think what's going on is that they're being they're censoring me for those interviews for the people that I had on, you know. So and they're like, and they didn't care. They weren't like, you know, they didn't agree with them or whatever. They're like, well, we'll figure it out and we'll try to get those episodes back up. Eventually, I think they are back up now. But so I've had, you know, knock on wood, I've been pretty good with the RSS feed. There, you don't see a whole lot of censorship with audio, which is weird. Like you see all the censorships in video platforms, and which has always been kind of weird to me. Like how you see almost very little censorship in the audio platform and tons of censorship on video
Yeah,
platforms. Which
maybe you should try to like get them on your podcast to talk to the CEO.
I've thought, you know, it's funny you say that. So when I had the alternative media podcast, we did the Union of Unwanted when we had Jeremy from Odyssey and the Float guys, and we had somebody on from Rockfin. I forget who else was on the call. But when we did that, I actually at last second I tried to get somebody from Podomatic. I'm like, you know what? Let me get Podomatic on here because I'm like, they haven't censored me or anybody that I know that's been on there. Let's see what they have to say about this. And I just, it was just short notice and I couldn't get anybody on. But yeah, they've been pretty good. They will send out letters from time to time explaining how like they're all for freedom of speech. Like they're never going to tell you what to put out, how to put it out, whatever. He's like, we're here to just support the content creators, and they've been pretty true to their word, you know. And the cool thing about Podcast Addict, you're getting the RSS feed. You can get it right from Podomatic, so basically from like my website. So there's no middleman. There's no Spotify that's going to censor something or filter things out. There's no iTunes or whatever. You're getting it directly from. So if it exists on my website, it's going to exist there. I'm also, and I don't think I've announced this yet, but I'll announce it now, that I'm also working on a website, similar to kind of like Sam Tripoli's website, where you're going to have access to all my shows right from that website. You'll have, you know, Ricky Rants and Rockfin. You'll have the Union of Unwanted, and you'll have the Ripple Effect podcast all on one website, audio and video. And then there'll also be ways of supporting the show and all that stuff all in one place. So it might be rickyvarandas.com. I might just have rickyvarandas.com and rippleeffectpodcast.com and all go to the same website. So it doesn't matter which URL you use. But so I'm doing that too, just in case in the future, because that's what all us content creators are talking about. They're like, okay, well, what if we get censored here? What if we get censored there?
Actually, Patreon has been hitting people hard.
Yeah. I mean, knock on wood, I haven't had any issues on Patreon. I don't know if it's because I literally don't say anything besides like, here, this is who's going to be on my show. This is when I'm going to do a podcast. Here's the Zoom link. That's it. But I've heard that other people have done like similar things, and they've asked, they've told them, and I think it might have been in Ryan's case, they actually told him it was stuff on his specific website that they wanted him to take down. It's like, wait.
Yeah, this is like, I guess unless somebody independently at Patreon goes sits down and listens to the Ripple Effect podcast, it should be okay.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, I like Patreon because the thing is, the whole token thing on Rockfin can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. It's like, what the hell is a Ray token? And I have to get a wallet for it, and the value of it changes up and down. Like on Patreon, it's like, okay, I know how much contributing I get. I know, like, okay, hey, if I want to buy a new webcam, a microphone, some cords, I'm like, okay, I know I have this money coming in, like I can pay for that. I feel comfortable just like dishing out the money now, and then when the Patreon money comes, I can put it, because I have like a little Ripple Effect podcast account where it's like that stuff only goes to like my bandwidth and all those expenses. So I'm like, I like knowing that money's guaranteed. So if something does break, I know I'm I'm confident enough I can buy something, you know, and I don't have to keep.
Yeah, I mean, the way things are right now, you know, if YouTube gets rid of everybody and Rockman goes down, I feel like there will be somebody out there that's got a platform for us to use. I mean, until the government just completely decides to take over the internet or something, I feel like there would be a bastion for free speech somewhere.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Before you felt like if YouTube went down, they removed us off of YouTube, we were screwed. But now you have all these alternatives that you're like, you know what? I can go to BitChute and find some good stuff. I can go to Odyssey, find some good stuff. And 2 seconds on Rockfin, Odyssey, or BitChute, you can find any much more interesting information than spending hours or days on YouTube. You can't find jack shit on YouTube. And it's like 2 seconds you're on Odyssey, you could just put in COVID or any general word, and you'll get all these interesting researchers and people who are giving you interesting information that you can't get on YouTube. So YouTube is like basically worthless. You know, I think many people are going down the direction of like, let me just put clips there, let me just put little things that advertise my website or whatever. But the thing is, you still need sites like that, because how are you going to find these other content creators, right? How are you going to find, like, if I have to go on everybody, and I had this kind of disagreement with James Corbett. He's like, the nice thing about the internet is like we all have our own place and we can all have our own spot. We don't have to, all kind of come together and be on one spot and depend on that spot. Like, I'm like, I get that. But it's also how you get exposed to new people's work, right? It's like, I don't want to have to go to every person. Like Sam says the same thing. Like, how hard is it to put a URL and then just go direct to my website? He's right. But it's much easier just go on YouTube, watch one video and suggest another video and then another video and be exposed to all this interesting stuff like we used to.
Like I'm personally willing to go to everybody's personal site if I have to, but not everybody's willing to do that. Not everybody's going to sit down.
99% of people doesn't do that. But when you're talking about searching, I know we're winding down here, but yeah, the Google search, I've found that if you know what you're searching for, you're going to find it. You just
agree.
No. You just need to use the words that the people are talking about. Like if you're going for 5G conspiracy, doesn't do shit. Just go for gain of function research.
There's a fan page on my blankie. There's a fan page on my blankie.
I think this child is.
Hold on. Wait, no, looking at something else.
Ronnie's voice just got really high, and he's talking about a blankie. But yeah, well, the thing is, if I go on Google and I search vaccines are safe and effective, I will get all the search results that I'm looking for.
Yeah, for sure.
If I go,
I get like 10 different notes and fact check sites.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something I recently did with like if you search chemtrails, it's like you're not going to get much. But if you type in aerosoling and Harvard patent, you'll come up with an article of a patent that Harvard has.
I'm saying.
Yeah, it's all you word it.
You need to search for the actual thing. Yeah.
But you can't get
if
to
you're
that
searching the conspiracy, like in quotes, you're not going to find shit. You need to search for the term that scientists are using.
Yeah, that's the value of books and podcasting to me, because you get direct input by people who have done research where you can find out those exact terms, the exact doctors.
I don't even listen to No Agenda a whole lot, but when I do, I love how they have links to every single thing they talk about. And so does the Last American Vagabond too.
Yeah,
I like a Last American Vagabond. You're going sources. Well, 1,000. Check it. I'm like, it's funny looking below the videos. Here are your sources, and you have
with
like 1,000 video fucking links.
James Corbett.
Yeah, Corbett's awesome.
Yeah.
Just always has like, here's the links. So Yeah,
Hey,
and
it's
I
good.
think that's important. If you have the time to do it, that's super important. And the thing is, like we said, like a lot of download that stuff because a lot of stuff will just disappear from the face of the earth if you don't. I'm hearing more and more people in the podcast community talk about how they cannot find the article that they knew existed, and now they're just going back to look for it and they can't find it. So I think that's going to be a reoccurring theme where just like you're going to have to just download stuff and just make sure that you have that evidence because
Yeah, like that's the scary thing. Like I know, Claude Robertson's books and a lot of other people's books, they'll go through the trouble to actually have the source link within the book, but it's going to be scary one day when you go to, you pull out the book, you see the source link, and you go to type it on the internet, and it's like, oh, error not found. So then the only proof you'll have will be in the book with no real link to back it up.
Yeah, I linked in the chat here. This is my little information that I'm linking to. If you guys click it, you can see what I've done. And I also have a map with it. I just checked. It's 21 gigs of downloaded videos from different podcasts and different stuff.
Down. Okay. And so 20, how many gigs of porn you said?
21. Yeah. I actually looked at when you talked about the Italian guy, I don't know his name.
Massimo? Yeah.
Yeah,
Filmmaker?
I have his documentary about the 9/11 New Pearl Harbor. It's 4 hours 53 minutes. I've downloaded. I'll have it on my computer.
Yeah,
And a lot of other videos too, but
I highly recommend you guys checking out all his documentaries. Cancer Cures, American Moon, the 9/11 one. They're all really, really well researched and well done. So but thanks again, guys. I don't know what part of the world or country you guys are in, but hopefully you still have some day to enjoy, and hopefully Andy is deep into some Mickey Mouse cake right now. And also enjoying his day, and hopefully I see you guys again in a future one. Like I said, I'll keep you guys in just in the loop in regards when the next one is, and if there's a certain time or day that works best for you guys, always feel free to let me know. I'll try to find a day and time that works best for the majority of people who are willing to show up. So and thank you again for the courage to come on. I actually live streamed this one for the heck of it. It was a last second decision, so this will be on my YouTube channel and eventually within the next 24 hours on all the video platforms that I'm on very soon. So if you guys want to go back and listen to it and or anything like that. So but thanks again, guys, from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your beautiful Saturday to hang out, and hopefully we talk again.
Take care.
Take care, guys.
thanks.
Take care,
Have a
everybody.
See you,
nice
Rick.
evening.
See ya. Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Check it out, Sean.
Yeah, it's right there. The new website, nowhere to go but up pod.com.
Awesome. A nice little plug right at the end.